When I was 16, I worked at my uncle's butcher shop. It was a rundown building in the old district of our town, where the sidewalks cracked like old bones and pigeons seemed to outnumber people. My uncle had taken me in after my parents split and moved to different cities. I lived in a small one-bedroom apartment above the shop, alone. The arrangement was simple: help clean up, restock inventory, and handle closing duties at night. I liked the solitude. There was something soothing about being surrounded by silence and the lingering scent of raw meat and cold metal. It was like the world had paused just for me when I was in that shop. But that stillness didn't stay peaceful for long. The first time I heard the knock, I thought it was a mistake. It came from inside the walk-in freezer. Knock, knock, knock. 3 sharp taps on metal from inside. I was in the back room doing inventory on poultry and froze mid-count. My first instinct was to laugh. Maybe I'd left some box leaning weird against the metal door. Maybe the cold was playing tricks on me. But when I walked over, nothing was leaning on the freezer, and I knew for sure no one was inside. I had cleaned it not even 10 minutes before. Still, I opened the door. It let out that usual blast of bitter cold, and inside was nothing. Empty shelves, clean floor. My breath hovered in front of me, a ghost in the chill. I waited a moment, unsure what exactly I was expecting. Maybe a rat? Maybe a prank by one of the older vendors from the district? Nothing. I shook it off. That night, upstairs, I heard the knocking again. Except this time it came from below, directly beneath my bed. Now here's the thing, my room was tiny. No crawl space, no trapdoor. Just old hardwood floors, scuffed from years of boots and furniture being dragged around. I sat up, every inch of my skin suddenly alert. It wasn't just one knock this time. It was 6. Knock, 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 knock. I got on my hands and knees and looked under the bed. Empty. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I asked my uncle about it casually while helping him lift a fresh pig carcass onto the hook. You ever have rats or raccoons in here? Something knocking around under the floors or in the freezer? He looked at me over his shoulder and frowned. Why? I hesitated. Just thought I heard something weird. He turned away. Old buildings make noise. You get used to it. That was the first lie. 2 nights later, I was alone again. My uncle had gone out of town for a supplier deal. I was cleaning the meat grinder when I noticed it was already spotless. I hadn't touched it since morning, and yet it was pristine. Even the blade was glinting like it had just been sharpened. Then came the knock. From the freezer. Again. I opened it. This time it wasn't empty. There were 2 wet footprints on the freezer floor. Human. Barefoot. They led in, not out. My hands went cold. I backed out slowly and shut the door. From behind it, 3 knocks. Knock. 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 This time it was followed by something else. A whisper. Barely audible. Muffled. Let me out. I didn't sleep again. I locked the shop. I bolted my apartment door. I shoved a chair against it and kept the lights on. At 3:43 a.m., I heard footsteps in the stairwell. Slow, heavy, unhurried. They stopped outside my door. Then the knocking came again. Not from below. From the other side of the apartment door. Knock, knock, knock. I didn't move. The knob jiggled once, twice. Then silence. I sat there with my back against the wall until sunrise. The next morning I checked the door.
No scratches.
No footprints on the dusty stairs. I told myself it had to be a dream, a hallucination from lack of sleep. But I didn't believe it. Then I noticed something new. The freezer was padlocked shut. I hadn't locked it. In fact, I hadn't even touched the lock in days. It was rusted and unused. But now it was clamped tight. The keys were missing. I called my uncle. What the hell is going on? He was quiet for too long. Finally, he said, Did you go in the freezer? You mean last night or last week? Don't be smart. Did you open it after hours? I heard someone in there. He muttered something in Spanish I didn't catch. Then, listen to me. Do not open that freezer again. Do you understand? Why the hell not? It's not a joke, kid. Just don't. That was the second lie. That night, I slept in the shop. Not by choice, the lock to my apartment was broken. Like it had been forced. So I dragged a blanket into the back room and curled up on a pile of shipping foam. Around 2 a.m., I heard the soft hum of the freezer kick on. And then, the padlock fell off. No one touched it.
No keys.
It just clicked and clattered to the ground. The freezer door creaked open an inch. From inside, a voice spoke. Clear. Calm. Male. Come here. I didn't move. Don't make me come out. I backed into the corner, grabbed the nearest thing I could, a meat hook, and held it in front of me like a crucifix. The door stayed open just that inch. But I could see something. A hand. Gray, wet-looking. Fingers long, too long. Nails like broken glass. The hand curled around the edge of the door. I screamed. Through the hook. The door slammed shut on its own. The lights flickered. When they came back on, the hand was gone. The padlock was back in place. Still no keys. I didn't speak to my uncle for 3 days. I didn't leave the shop. I barely ate. I kept the freezer locked and piled boxes in front of it. On the 4th night, he returned. He looked older, grayer. And he told me everything. In 1978, before I was born, the shop belonged to someone else. A man named Eduardo Gomez. He ran it alone. Lived above it just like me. He was known for having the best cuts of meat in the county. One day he vanished.
No trace.
Shop was found open. The freezer running full blast. No blood. No signs of a break-in. Just a faint handprint on the inside of the freezer door. They never found him. A month later, a customer claimed she saw him inside the freezer, tapping on the glass, smiling. They thought she was nuts. The shop changed hands 3 times before my uncle bought it. Each owner lasted less than a year. All left abruptly.
No explanations.
Except one note, scrawled on the wall in pencil behind the freezer. It's warmer inside. After that, my uncle kept the freezer locked. Refused to use it. Installed a smaller one instead. Until I started working there. And reopened it. That was years ago. I moved out. Moved far away. I don't eat red meat anymore. But sometimes I still hear it in dreams or during late silent nights. Knock. 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 And then, come here. It started after my sister left town for her work trip. She was going to be gone for a week, and asked if I could house sit and watch her 6-month-old daughter, Emma. I wasn't exactly thrilled. I mean, I'm not great with babies, but I owed her. Plus, it was just 7 days. How hard could it be? My sister's house sat in a quiet, tree-lined suburb, the kind of place where everything looked the same.
Beige walls.
2 stories. Sprinklers humming in the morning. That kind of normal. Nothing ever felt sinister there until it did. I was given a full rundown. Bottles every 4 hours, diapers, lullaby playlist, emergency numbers. She handed me a baby monitor system, one of those new digital ones with video, 2-way audio, and a connection to your phone. It even had night vision. The camera sat on the shelf in Emma's nursery, watching over her crib. It fed to a small monitor I carried around like a pager. She left early Monday morning. Emma was already awake and gurgling. By Monday night, things had changed. At 1:13 a.m., I was woken up by static. I had placed the monitor on the nightstand beside me. The screen glowed faintly. Emma had been asleep. I double-checked before turning in. But now the screen was flickering. Not black, but full of distortion, like those old TV channels that couldn't find a signal. In between bursts of static, I heard it. A voice. Not Emma. Not a baby's cry. A low, whispery muttering. I turned the volume up. It stopped. Just more static. I sat up and stared at the screen for almost 5 minutes. Then, slowly, it resolved into a picture again. Emma, fast asleep in her crib. I wrote it off. Tech glitch. Maybe interference. But something stayed in the back of my mind. A feeling. Like I just overheard a secret I wasn't meant to. Tuesday night, same time, 1:13 a.m., the monitor went static again. I was waiting this time, and this time the whispering was clearer. It was a woman's voice, humming. It wasn't the lullaby playlist. I knew the songs by heart by now. Twinkle Twinkle, You Are My Sunshine, all the usuals. This was something else. Slow, uneven, off-key, and I could hear footsteps, soft and measured, moving around the crib. I bolted out of bed and sprinted to the nursery. Emma was asleep, alone. No music, no one in the room. No sound but her faint breathing and the gentle whoosh of the white noise machine. I checked the camera. Its little red LED was blinking like normal. Back in my room, the monitor still showed static. And the humming was gone. By Wednesday, I was jumpy. I kept checking Emma's room every few minutes. I moved the monitor with me around the house like a bodyguard. That night, I set up my phone to record the monitor screen while I slept, just in case it happened again. It did, at exactly 1:13 a.m. But this time, I didn't wake up. I only saw it when I reviewed the footage the next morning. The video starts with the monitor showing Emma, asleep, then static, then the humming, and then a figure. Just a shape, really, shadow-like, moving along the bottom of the screen like it was crawling across the floor toward the crib. The figure had no clear outline, just a mass of darkness that undulated and flickered like smoke in a jar. It reached the crib and stood up, and then it looked directly at the camera, right before the screen went black. I replayed it 6 times. Every time my breath caught when that face, or whatever it was, turned to the lens. There were no features, just darkness and 2 empty eye sockets. Not glowing, not reflecting, just voids. And then, as if it heard me watching it, the baby monitor lit up again in my hand. Static. Then a whisper. You left the door open. I dropped it. I ran to the nursery. Emma was awake and cooing. Perfectly fine. The window was locked. The door had been closed. But when I stepped inside, I saw something that hadn't been there before. A baby rattle. Old-fashioned. Wooden. Painted with chipped red hearts. Sitting on the edge of the crib rail. I didn't recognize it. My sister never mentioned it. And I'd been with Emma nonstop. I picked it up carefully. It was ice cold. And there was something etched into the handle, barely visible under the paint. For Mary, I called my sister. She sounded tired. Hey, I started. Did Mom ever talk about someone named Mary? There was a pause. Yeah, she said slowly. Why? She used to babysit for us when we were little, right? Sort of, my sister said. She lived in the house before we bought it. Wait, what? It was a weird deal, she continued. The seller said she died upstairs, in what's now the nursery. The guy mentioned it last minute, but it wasn't a legal disclosure, so we just... She trailed off. Why are you asking? I told her everything. The static, the voice, the figure, the rattle. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, Mom used to call her the night lady. Said she lost a baby, rocked an empty cradle every night until she died. That night I didn't sleep. I set up 2 phones, the monitor, and kept a flashlight in hand. At 1:12 a.m., everything shut off. Phones, monitor, lights. darkness, and then the sound of the nursery door opening. I stepped into the hallway, heart hammering. I could see the glow from Emma's nightlight leaking out from under the door. And then it faded, like someone had blocked it. I stepped forward. Knock! Knock! 2 soft knocks from inside the nursery. My hands were shaking. I turned the knob. Inside, the rocking chair in the corner was swaying gently, and the baby rattle was on the floor again. Emma was sound asleep, but her eyes were open. I took her and left. I drove all night to my parents' house 3 towns over. I didn't explain. Couldn't. I left the monitor behind. When my sister returned, she found the nursery as I'd left it. Except for one thing, the rattle was gone. And when she checked the monitor's SD card, the last video was a single still frame. A face, pale, smiling, holding a baby. But it wasn't Emma. And the caption underneath, in glitchy digital font, read, "She's mine now." I had just moved into my first real house. Not an apartment, not a shared rental, but a full-on, 2-bedroom standalone place at the edge of town. It was nothing special, just an older craftsman-style home tucked into a wooded street that didn't see much traffic. I was 27, single, and recently promoted at my tech job. The timing felt right. I wanted space. I wanted quiet. I didn't mind that the place needed a little work. The seller had even given me a generous discount because, as he put it, the basement's a bit of a nuisance. I didn't ask questions. Not then. I should have, because I wasn't alone in that house. And I didn't find out the normal way, through creaking floors or weird dreams or cold spots. I found out because someone left a sandwich on my kitchen table. The first few days went fine. I unpacked, settled in, tried to ignore the slightly off smell that lingered in the hallway near the basement door. It wasn't rot exactly, more like mildew and mothballs, the kind of scent that makes you think of forgotten corners. The basement had a heavy door with a stiff deadbolt. I figured it hadn't been opened in years. I tried the knob once and found it wouldn't turn, so I left it alone. Until the 3rd night. I came home from a late shift around 11:30 p.m. I hadn't eaten. I tossed my keys on the counter, kicked off my shoes, and turned toward the fridge. And that's when I saw it. A sandwich, neatly wrapped in wax paper, sitting on a plate in the center of my kitchen table. Turkey.
Mayo.
Pickles. Exactly how I liked it. I froze. No one else had keys. I hadn't ordered food. I hadn't left anything out that morning. And then I noticed the smell again, that same basement musk. Stronger now, like it had wafted up the stairs. I backed out of the room and locked myself in the bedroom. I called the cops the next morning. They searched the house. Every closet. Every crawl space. When they got to the basement, they found the door unlocked. The hinges groaned like a dying animal as they pried it open. The cop aimed his flashlight down the steps. I watched over his shoulder. The basement wasn't empty. It was a lived-in space. Cot in the corner. Blankets.
À portable radio.
Dozens of old newspapers stacked against the wall. Food wrappers. Rusted canned goods. And something else. A single handwritten note tacked to the far wall. It said, "Don't come down. I don't like being seen." The officer turned to me. "You know anything about this?" I shook my head. They didn't find anyone down there, but they said it looked like someone had been there recently. They advised me to install new locks and maybe get a security camera. I did both, but it didn't stop. A week later, I found my socks folded neatly at the foot of my bed. I hadn't worn socks in 2 days. I checked the locks. Still secure. Cameras untouched. And yet, the static smell returned. That earthy, basement scent. Lingering longer each time. The next night, I checked the basement camera feed on my phone around midnight. It was black. I tapped the screen, thinking it was buffering. Then the screen lit up, not with video, but with a message in white text across a gray background. Don't look. The camera feed crashed. That's when the dreams started. Always the same. I'm standing at the top of the basement stairs. The door creaks open. Darkness pours out like fog. I hear breathing, wet, hoarse, close. And a voice says, "Thank you for the home." I always wake up drenched in sweat, the smell of mildew in my nose. I hired a locksmith to seal the basement permanently. I told myself I was being paranoid, that maybe it was an old squatter's hideout and my brain was playing tricks on me. But the night after it was sealed, I woke up to tapping.
Top, top, top.
Not on the door. From inside the wall behind my bed. Like knuckles rapping gently against plaster. I pressed my ear to the wall, breathing. Then a voice, so faint I thought I was imagining it. "You locked me in." I moved my bed to the living room. I tried sleeping during the day instead. But no matter the time, that presence lingered. I left out a piece of paper on the kitchen table one night. Just a test. "Who are you?" I wrote. I left a pencil beside it. The next morning, the paper had changed. The handwriting was spidery and faint, like it had been written with a weak hand. "I lived here. I stayed quiet. You brought noise. I stopped inviting people over. I stopped talking about it." What could I say? That I had a polite ghost? A basement hermit? Some part of me was terrified of kicking it out, afraid of what it might do if I crossed some invisible line. Then came the final straw. I had a date. She came over on a Saturday evening. I kept everything normal, lights on, wine chilled, trying not to seem like the kind of guy who was haunted by his own basement. We were watching a movie when the lights went out. Pitch black. I grabbed my phone. No signal. Then came the sound, slow dragging footsteps, heavy, from the direction of the basement. She froze. "Is someone else here?" Before I could answer, the TV flickered back on. But not the movie. A static screen. And on it, in black block letters, "Leave her." She screamed. I didn't blame her. She left. I never heard from her again. I stayed up all night. In the morning, the basement door was open again, even though it had been sealed shut. A trail of muddy footprints led out and stopped at the kitchen table. On it was another sandwich. Same kind. Same neat wax paper wrap. Only this time, there was a message beside it. "I don't like guests. I sold the house within the month. Took a loss. Didn't care. I live in a high-rise apartment now."
No basements. No hidden rooms.
Sometimes, though, I still smell that damp, earthy odor. And when I do, I check the fridge. Because if there's a sandwich waiting, I'll know I was never truly alone again. My first apartment wasn't anything special. A one-bedroom on the second floor of an old Victorian house that had been split into units. I was 22, fresh out of college, and desperate to prove I could handle living alone. The rent was cheap, the neighbors quiet, and the place had character. Hardwood floors, antique fixtures, even a clawfoot tub. But it also had a large bay window in the living room. At night, the window turned into a mirror. During the day, it let in light and birdsong. But once the sun dipped below the horizon, that wide pane of glass became something else entirely. A portal that reflected back more than just my own face. It started subtly, a shape in the reflection that didn't belong. The first time I noticed it, I was brushing my teeth, catching glimpses of the living room from the bathroom mirror. I thought I saw someone walk past the window, just a flicker, a shadow where there shouldn't be one. I chalked it up to headlights from the street, maybe a passing car. But then it happened again. And again, always at night, always between 2:00 and 2:15 a.m., a human silhouette, standing just outside the window, watching. I tried to catch it in the act, Stayed up late with the lights off. Pulled up a chair, camera ready, phone in hand. Watched the window like a hawk. 2:12 a.m. Nothing. 2:14 a.m. There, movement. I jumped to my feet and yanked open the curtains. No one there. Just the empty street. Trees rustling. Porch lights glowing 2 houses down. But when I turned back to the room, I noticed something chilling. The condensation on the inside of the window had handprints. Long, smudged fingers, trailing downward, as if someone had pressed their face and hands to the glass and slid down slowly. I hadn't opened the window in days. I called the landlord the next morning. Probably a raccoon, he said, or neighborhood kids playing around. But I could hear the shift in his voice, the hesitance, like he knew something. I pushed. Has anyone ever reported weird stuff before? At this apartment. A pause. You're in Unit 2, right? Yeah. He sighed. There was a break-in a few years ago. Guy climbed through that window. Tenant was home. Didn't end well. Didn't end well? She didn't make it. After that, I started sleeping with the lights on. I bought blackout curtains. Covered the window completely. I tried to convince myself it was just paranoia, that I was letting my imagination run wild. Until the night I found muddy footprints on the floor. From the window to the hallway. Barefoot. Human. Leading toward my bedroom. They stopped at the threshold. No prints going back. I checked the locks. The window was latched. No sign of forced entry. And yet the footprints were real. Damp. Faint smears on the hardwood. I called the police. They found nothing. One of the officers lingered behind after his partner stepped outside. You live here alone? He asked. I nodded. He hesitated. Lock your bedroom door, he said quietly. Just in case. I started locking everything. Windows, bedroom, even the bathroom when I showered. I installed a second bolt on the front door. Bought pepper spray. Still, every night at 2:15 a.m., I'd hear it. 3 taps on the window.
Top, top, top.
Even with the curtains closed. Even when I played music to drown it out. Always 3. Always at the same time. Then came the night I broke. It was storming hard. Wind howling. Rain slapping against the glass like fists. I thought, no way anyone's out there in this. I went to the window, yanked the curtains aside. No one there. But then lightning struck. A bright, searing flash. And for just a moment I saw him. Not outside, but inside. A man tall, gaunt, soaked in shadow. Standing in the corner behind me. His eyes were hollow. His mouth was stitched shut. I spun around. No one there. I ran to the bathroom and locked the door. Slept in the tub with a knife under my pillow. The next day, I packed my bags. I left a voicemail for the landlord. Keep the deposit. I'm gone. I stayed with a friend across town. For 3 nights, nothing happened.
No nax. No sados.
Then, on the 4th night, I got a call from a blocked number at 2:16 a.m. I let it go to voicemail. When I listened to the message, my blood ran cold. It was the sound of 3 soft knocks. And a whisper. You forgot to close the curtain. Weeks later, I drove past the old place. My old window wide open. Curtains blowing outward like hands reaching for help. I kept driving. I never looked back. The house belonged to my aunt. She passed away in the fall of 2022. Peacefully, in her sleep, they said. I hadn't seen her in years. Not since I was a teenager. But she'd always liked me. Left me the house in her will. It was a quiet place out in central Maine. Wooded land, long gravel driveway, tall pines hemming in all sides. No neighbors within shouting distance. I'd always remembered it fondly. Summers spent playing in the yard, reading on the porch, sneaking bites of homemade fudge. But coming back, alone, after all that time, felt different, like something had shifted, like the walls remembered things I didn't. I planned to stay a week, clean up, box what I wanted, and list the property. Just a temporary stay. But that changed the night I opened the door to the crawlspace. It was around midnight. I was in the living room, cataloging old photo albums when I heard something strange. Dragging. Not footsteps. Not creaking. Dragging. Like something heavy scraping along wood. Came from below. I remembered the crawlspace then. A hatch in the hallway closet. It was small, no bigger than a dog door, leading under the house. Curiosity got the better of me. I grabbed a flashlight and opened the hatch. The beam barely pierced the gloom. Dust swirled like ash. I could make out the concrete foundation, old insulation, and plastic sheeting covering parts of the dirt floor. And then I saw them. Handprints. Dozens. Pressed into the plastic. Small. Like a child's. All leading toward the far corner of the crawlspace and disappearing into darkness. I slammed the hatch and shoved a box over it. Told myself raccoons had gotten in. Maybe squirrels. Maybe she'd had grandkids visit, though I knew she hadn't. Still, I didn't sleep. I heard the dragging again around 3 a.m. Faint. Deliberate. Closer. The next morning, I called a pest control service. They came, poked around the outside of the house, declared it clear. I didn't ask them to check the crawlspace. I didn't want to open that hatch again. But I didn't need to. That night, the hatch opened on its own. I heard it, the soft click of the latch, the low creak of hinges. I tiptoed down the hall and found the closet door ajar. And in the middle of the hallway rug was dirt. Not a lot. Just enough to suggest something or someone had crawled out. I followed the trail to the kitchen. It ended at the refrigerator. And taped to the fridge using a butterfly magnet was a piece of yellowed paper. A child's drawing. Stick figures. One with long black hair, my aunt. One with short brown hair, me. And a third smaller with no face, standing behind us both. In big crayon letters at the top, it read, "I live here too." I burned the paper, called a friend, told her I was leaving early. She laughed. Ghosts? Seriously. I didn't respond, because I didn't think it was a ghost. Felt worse than that. The next evening, as I was packing the car, I heard the sound again. Not dragging this time. Crawling. Faster.
Urgent.
From under the floorboards. And then the thump. Directly beneath my feet. I backed away and felt the boards move slightly under me, as if something pressed upward. I ran to the bedroom, locked the door, and waited until morning. But the sound never stopped. Scratching, scraping, sometimes whispering. I tried to leave at first light, but my keys were missing. Gone. So was my phone. The car battery was dead, drained, even though it had been fine the night before. I was stuck, and the hatch was open again. That night I heard singing. Soft, off-key, like a lullaby hummed by someone who hadn't heard music in decades. I sat in the living room with every light on. And then knock, knock, knock. 3 knocks on the inside wall near the crawlspace, followed by more handprints. On the mirror, on the windows, on the ceiling. I found another note the next morning. This one scrawled in charcoal across the living room wall. "You're the only one who ever came back." I don't remember how long I stayed after that. Days? Weeks? Time blurred. The lights began to flicker. Food went missing. The drawings kept appearing. More stick figures, more of that faceless one getting closer. I stopped going near the hatch, until I woke up one night, lying half inside it, covered in dirt, my fingers bloodied from digging, and a voice in my head, not mine, whispering, "She promised you'd come back. You're mine now. I don't live there anymore." I don't remember how I escaped, or if I ever did. Sometimes I wake up and find dirt under my nails. Sometimes the hatch is open again. even though I live on the third floor now. I wasn't supposed to be alone. My roommate had left for a family emergency. Just a couple days, she said. Maybe 3. I told her I'd hold down the fort, feed her cat, water the plants, take messages. No problem. But the house didn't like me alone. It was an old colonial rental in Vermont, built before insulation, before central heating. Every floorboard groaned like it had secrets. The walls were thick and full of dust, and the upstairs attic had one of those old pull-down ladders that creaked and protested with every tug. I'd never gone up there. No reason to, until the whispers started. The first night, I was watching TV when I heard a soft creak above me, like someone walking in the attic. The cat, Juniper, sat up on the couch beside me, ears alert. I muted the TV, waited. Another creak, then 2 more. Slow, even. Juniper growled. I chalked it up to settling wood. Maybe wind. Old houses groan all the time, right? Still, I texted my roommate. Is there anything in the attic? Storage stuff. She replied 2 minutes later. Should be empty. We never put anything up there. Why? I didn't answer, because at that moment, the attic ladder lowered on its own with a heavy clunk. I screamed and ran to the door, phone in hand. But when I turned around, the ladder was still gently swaying, as if someone had just climbed down. Only no one was there. I grabbed a broom, climbed the stairs, and nudged the attic ladder closed without ever peeking up. I shoved a chair under the latch and turned every light on in the house. That night, I dreamed of footsteps pacing above my bed. When I woke up, there were footprints in the dust on the bedroom ceiling. The next day, I told myself I'd imagined it, just a sleep-deprived hallucination. I stayed out most of the day, ran errands, took the long way home, avoided the house like it had the plague. But that night, things escalated. Around 1:00 a.m., I heard whispering, very faint, like breath through a keyhole. I leaned against the wall, heart pounding, and realized it was coming from the attic vent, a small grated opening just above the linen closet. The voice whispered the same thing over and over. She's not here. I see you. Juniper refused to go upstairs after that. She'd sit at the foot of the staircase and hiss if I tried to carry her up. One night, she scratched at my door so violently I let her in just to keep the peace. That was the night I finally looked up. The vent above the closet was open. Why, inside, just visible through the slats, was an eye. A single, unblinking eye, milky white.
No iris.
Just watching. I moved to the living room couch and blocked the bedroom door with the dresser. Still, the noises continued. Dragging. Whispers. Soft thuds against the attic floor. And then, one night, crying. Not loud. Childlike. The kind of whimper you'd hear from a kid who skinned their knee and didn't want to be noticed. Came from the attic hatch. I stood beneath it for nearly 5 minutes, trying to decide whether to open it or run. Then the voice spoke. A girl's voice, hollow and slow. I'm still hungry. I turned and ran out of the house barefoot. The next day, I called the landlord, told him there was someone in the attic. He came by with a locksmith and a flashlight, opened the hatch, climbed up, and came back down in under 2 minutes. Nothing up there, he said. Dust, cobwebs, mouse droppings. That's it. He looked pale, though, shaken. I noticed a tiny red scratch on his cheek. He refused to make eye contact as he left. And as he drove off, I swear I saw the attic curtain, which shouldn't have been there, draw closed from the inside. I moved out the next day. Didn't wait for my roommate. Didn't explain. I left her a note. Don't sleep in the bedroom. Don't listen to the ceiling. Don't feed it. I never went back. But last month I saw a listing for that house again. It included photos, kitchen, bathroom, bedroom, and one image of the attic. In the background, Behind a broken crib and a pile of boxes was the silhouette of a girl, thin, hair draped over her face, standing, watching, still hungry. I moved into the house after my divorce. I needed a reset, something quiet, small, and remote. The place was perfect. A 2-bedroom bungalow tucked into the edge of the woods, 30 miles outside the nearest city. It was the kind of silence I hadn't realized I missed. For 3 months, it was paradise. Until the morning I noticed a door that hadn't been there before. It was on the 2nd floor at the end of the hallway across from my bedroom. A pale blue door with a brass knob, slightly chipped paint, just like the others in the house. But I knew every inch of that place. There had only ever been 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, and a tiny linen closet. No door at the end of the hall. Ever. I stared at it for a long time, waiting for it to blink out of existence, or for my brain to catch up and say, "Oh right, of course. That's always been there." But it didn't, because it hadn't. It was new, and the doorknob was warm when I touched it. I didn't open it that day, or the day after. I watched it, checked it each morning. Every time it looked slightly different, more weathered. The paint faded a little. One day there was a crack down the center. Another day there were scratch marks near the bottom, as if someone had clawed at it trying to get in, or out. On the 5th day I opened it. There was no room, just a staircase, narrow, steep, descending into blackness far deeper than the physical layout of the house should have allowed. I tossed a marble down, waited. It never hit the bottom. I tried to shut the door. It wouldn't close. I pushed hard. It resisted like something was pressing back. When I finally forced it shut, I bolted it with a chair and didn't sleep that night. The next morning, the chair was gone. The door was open again. I stopped going upstairs, slept on the couch, kept all the lights on. Every night, I heard something climbing the stairs behind that door. Slow, uneven, like it had too many legs or not enough. Always stopping right at the threshold, never crossing. Yet, then the smell started. Rotten eggs, vetfur, rusted metal. It drifted out into the hallway, seeped into the air vents. One night, I woke up choking on it. The door was wide open. There were wet footprints on the ceiling above me, human-shaped, but facing the wrong way, heels first, toes trailing behind. Like someone had walked upside down across the ceiling and stopped right above where I slept. I called a priest. He showed up with salt, oil, and prayer books. Said he didn't believe in Hollywood hauntings, but admitted there was something unnatural about the air upstairs. He climbed the steps. I waited. 10 minutes passed, then 15. Then I heard him scream. It wasn't a yell of pain. It was mourning, deep, guttural grief. I ran up, but the hallway was empty. So was the staircase. And the blue door? Gone. Just blank wall now.
No hinges. No outline.
No sign it had ever existed, except for the priest's rosary lying on the floor, still warm. I tried to leave, packed a bag, locked up, got in my car. But the road was gone. Where the gravel drive had been, there was now only thick pine forest. I walked for hours.
No landmarks.
Just trees. And when I came back, the house looked different. The windows were all dark. The roof sagged, like it was decaying faster than time allowed. The blue door was back, this time on the front porch, standing free, unsupported, just a frame in the middle of the deck, wide open. And from the stairs beyond it, I heard my own voice, calling, begging, saying it was trapped. I didn't go through. I don't know what would have happened if I did. But every night since, I've found the door somewhere new. In my closet, in the mirror, on the side of my refrigerator, always ajar, always whispering in my voice, always inviting me down those impossible stairs. One of these nights I might stop resisting. Because sometimes, I swear I can hear my daughter's voice from the darkness, too. And I haven't seen her since the divorce. I lived alone in a downtown high-rise, 15th floor, corner unit, open floor plan, everything modern. The building had great security, cameras in every hallway, a doorman, key fobs for elevator access. That's what made what happened even harder to explain. Because someone was in my apartment, and it spoke to me through the air vent. The voice started on a Thursday night. I was eating dinner alone, watching a podcast on my tablet, when I heard my name, clear as day. Dylan. It wasn't loud, just unmistakable, like someone was standing behind me, whispering into my ear. I spun around. Empty. Then I heard it again, this time softer, almost playful. Dylan. It came from above. I looked up. There was an old vent near the ceiling, rectangular, dust-ringed, part of the original HVAC system. I'd barely noticed it before. Now it felt like an eye. I laughed it off, told myself it was wind, or the ductwork settling, or the podcast glitching out. But that night, I woke up at 3:08 a.m. No sound, just pressure, like the air itself was holding its breath. Then, a low rattle from the vent above my bed, like fingers brushing the grate. And then the voice, "I know what you did." I sat bolt upright, heart pounding. The room was freezing. My phone was dead, battery drained even though it had been plugged in. I flipped on the light. Nothing. But when I checked the vent, I found something strange. Scratches. Tiny, erratic gouges along the inside of the slats, as if nails had clawed their way out. The next day, I told building management. They sent up a maintenance guy. He pulled off the cover, shined a flashlight inside, and shrugged. "Just dust," he said. But I noticed something behind him, caught in the beam of light for just a second. A smudge. No, a fingerprint, pressed on the inside of the metal, facing outward. I started sleeping with headphones in, played white noise, kept the lights on, but it didn't help. The voice was inside my head now. Every night, same time, 3:08 a.m. Sometimes it laughed. Sometimes it just repeated my name over and over. Sometimes it said things no one could know. Private memories. Shameful secrets. One night, it whispered, "You shouldn't have lied about the fire." I hadn't told anyone about the fire. Not since high school. I blocked the vent with a towel, taped cardboard over it, covered it with a bookshelf. Nothing worked. The voice just moved. To the bathroom vent. Then the one in the kitchen. Once it came from the shower drain. "Let me see you." I set up a camera facing the bedroom vent. Let it run all night. Next morning, I checked the footage. From 3:08 to 3:10 a.m., the screen went black. Just black. When it returned, the camera had been moved. It now faced the bed. And someone, or something, had drawn a smiley face on the lens in grease. I stopped sleeping, started hallucinating, saw shapes in reflections, heard my name in the hum of appliances. My apartment reeked of metal and mildew. The walls felt like they were breathing. Then the final night came. I sat on the floor, every vent covered, knife in hand, waiting. At 3:08 a.m., all the lights went out. And I heard it again, not from a vent, from inside the apartment, right behind me. "Let me out, Dylan." I turned. The wall across from me was melting. That's the only way I can describe it. The paint bubbled, the drywall pulsed, and then a crack formed, long and jagged like a mouth opening. A hand slipped out, pale, too many knuckles, nails like splinters, pointed at me. "I remember what you did." I ran. Didn't pack. Didn't close the door. Just ran barefoot into the hallway, screaming like a lunatic. Security found me in the stairwell. They said I was alone in the unit. Said the vents were all intact. No evidence of tampering. But when they reviewed the hallway cam, something caught their eye. At 3:07 a.m., my door opened by itself. And for exactly 2 minutes, something stood in the doorway. Something tall, featureless, smiling. Then it stepped backward and the door closed again. I don't live in that building anymore. But every now and then, I hear my name whispered through the radiator in my new place. And the air smells faintly of burnt metal. I used to work from home in a small one-bedroom apartment in Asheville. Cozy, with lots of light, hardwood floors, and a tall antique mirror in the corner of the living room that I'd picked up from a vintage shop downtown. Ornate gold trim, beveled edges, full length. It made the room feel bigger, at least at first. Then it made the room feel watched. I was home alone every day. My girlfriend worked out of state and only visited on weekends. I liked the quiet, the predictability, but that mirror, it started to show things that weren't there. Not reflections, images. The first time it happened, I was walking by on my way to the kitchen. I glanced at the mirror and saw, for a split second, a girl standing behind me. Not next to me, behind me, pale, young, maybe 10 years old, wearing a simple dress, hair hanging over her face. I turned around. Nothing there. I looked back at the mirror. Empty. Kept happening. Always quick flashes. Never direct. Like glimpsing something between frames of a movie. A hand resting on my shoulder. A face peering from the side. A smear of something red at the bottom corner. I tried to dismiss it. Light tricks. Sleep deprivation. Anxiety. Until the day she moved. It was around 2:00 p.m. I was on a Zoom call, facing away from the mirror. My webcam was angled slightly to the left, so I could see the mirror in my periphery. I noticed something strange. My reflection was normal, but someone else was there too. Standing in the background. Watching. I turned. Room was empty, but when I looked back at the mirror, the girl had moved. She was now closer, nearer to the front of the glass, and her hand was pressed against it, palm flat, as if trapped behind the surface. I draped a sheet over the mirror, tried to forget about it, but that night the sheet was gone, neatly folded and placed on my pillow, and written in the dust on the mirror's surface were 5 words. She sees what you do. From then on, the girl appeared every time I looked into the mirror. Not a hallucination. Presence. Always in the background. Sometimes still. Sometimes pacing. And sometimes smiling. But only in the mirror. Never in the real room. I called the antique shop. Asked where the mirror came from. The owner hesitated. Estate sale, he said. From an old house outside Boone. Place burned down 10 years ago. Only thing that didn't get scorched was that mirror. Anyone die in the fire? He went quiet. Then, a little girl. I tried to return the mirror. Loaded it into my car. Drove back to the shop. But when I opened the trunk, it wasn't there. Just a folded sheet. And a note in red crayon. You brought me home. I threw the mirror in the dumpster behind my building. Watched it shatter. Glass exploded across concrete. I felt relief. That night, I slept soundly for the first time in weeks. Until 3:03 a.m. I woke up needing water. As I passed the hallway, I noticed a shimmer on the wall. A reflection. Even though I'd thrown the mirror away. I turned slowly. There she was. Not in a mirror. On the window glass. On the inside. Watching me. Smiling. And in her hand, a shard of broken mirror. When I was 19, I rented a studio apartment in the bad part of town. It was all I could afford. 1 room, a tiny kitchen, and a bathroom with a flickering light. The kind of place you pretend has charm just to keep yourself from going crazy. The bed took up most of the space. It was one of those raised metal frames with storage room underneath, about a foot of clearance. I never stored anything down there. Not after what happened. It started with the thumping. Every night, around 2 a.m., I'd hear it, soft but steady. Thump, thump, thump. Not from the walls. Not from outside. From directly under my bed. The first few nights, I assumed it was my neighbors. Paper-thin walls. Noises traveled. But one night, I laid perfectly still, ears open, and the sound came again. Thump, 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 right beneath me, timed with my breathing, like it was mimicking. I got up and looked under the bed. Nothing. Just shadows and dust and the flicker of the bathroom light bleeding in. But as I turned away, I swear I saw something move. Not a shape, just darkness, rearranging itself. Then came the cold spots. I'd wake up shivering, even in the middle of June. The air felt still heavy. My skin would prickle like someone was watching me. One morning, I stepped out of bed and felt something soft under my foot. A sock? No, a piece of cloth. Old, frayed, smelled of mold. It was a shirt sleeve, still warm. I asked the landlord if anyone had ever lived or died in that unit. He scoffed.
Kit, people die wer.
Rent's cheap. You want ghosts, you gotta pay extra. He laughed at his own joke. I didn't, because that night I saw him. I just turned off the lights, laid down, rolled to my side. From the corner of my eye, I saw fingers curl around the floor from under the bed frame. Thin, dirty, pale like uncooked dough. They pressed into the hardwood, slow and trembling, as a head emerged from the shadows. Not crawling, not lunging. Sliding, like it was being pulled out by something I couldn't see. A face appeared, smiling, lips dry and split, eyes open too wide. And in a voice like dead leaves rustling, he said, "Shoo, I'm already inside." I screamed and leapt from the bed. Flipped the light on. Nothing there. Nothing under the bed.
No footprints. No smudge.
But on the floor, written in dust, "Too slow." I didn't sleep that night. I sat in a chair with a knife and a flashlight, eyes on the bed. At 3:17 a.m., the mattress shifted. I watched it rise, just a little, like something underneath was pushing upward. I ran. The next day I moved the bed, dragged it to the center of the room, left no clearance underneath, slept on the floor after that, and for a while things were quiet, until the night I woke up to breathing. Not mine, not above me, from below, from inside the floor. Then I heard scratching, and this whisper, muffled but unmistakable. "I liked it better when you were on top." I smashed the floorboards with a hammer, ripped up every plank. Beneath the foundation was dirt, packed, undisturbed dirt, except for one small hole, fresh, and inside it, a shoe, a rotted leather shoe, my size. I moved out the next morning, left half my stuff behind. The landlord didn't even ask why. He just smiled and handed me my deposit. As I walked away, I asked, "Seriously, has anyone else ever reported anything strange in that unit?" He shrugged, then said, "They all move out within 3 months. Sometimes I still hear it. Thump, 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 right before I fall asleep, no matter where I live, like something under the bed is following me, waiting, and one day when I'm too tired or too numb to run, he'll slide out, smiling." It started after I upgraded my home security system. I live alone in a townhouse, small, modern, just 2 stories. After a rash of break-ins hit the neighborhood, I decided to invest in a few cameras. Motion-triggered, night vision, real-time alerts to my phone. Nothing fancy. I felt safer, more in control, until the system began showing me a man inside my house. A man who wasn't there. The first time it happened, I was at work. My phone buzzed. Motion detected. Living room cam. I opened the feed. A man in a dark hoodie was standing by my couch, facing away from the camera.
No mask. No weapon.
Just still. Panicked. Called 911. By the time the police arrived, the house was empty. No signs of forced entry. Nothing missing. The footage was gone. Not deleted. Just missing. The time block between 11:46 and 11:49 a.m. was corrupted. The officer shrugged. Glitch. Cheap cameras do that sometimes. I didn't sleep that night. The next day it happened again. Motion alert. Same man. Same hoodie. This time he was standing at the foot of the stairs, looking directly into the camera. But there was something off about his eyes. They didn't catch the IR flash like normal eyes do.
No reflection.
Just black voids. I tried taking a screenshot, but the app froze. When I restarted it, the video was gone again. I called the security company. They reviewed the system remotely. There's no evidence of an intrusion, the tech said. All sensors are normal. You sure you're not being pranked? I wasn't, because later that night I saw the man in real time. I was brushing my teeth upstairs when I glanced at the hallway monitor screen. One of those small LCD panels mounted by the stairs. The feed from the downstairs camera was on a loop. Only now it showed the man standing at the base of the staircase. Still, waiting. I turned to look. Nothing there. Looked back at the screen, he was closer. One step up. I ran into the bathroom and locked the door. The screen inside the panel cut to static. And then a whisper crackled through the speaker. You're watching me. Good. I ripped the whole system out the next morning. Cables, cameras, everything. Threw them in the trash. Felt a strange peace after that. Until the motion alerts kept coming. From the same system I'd uninstalled. Living room. Movement detected. Kitchen. Unknown presence. No feed this time. Just the messages. Like he didn't want me to see anymore. The house grew cold. I'd hear footsteps when I was in the shower. Whispers near the outlets. Static under the floor. Once, I opened a cabinet and found the camera, the one I'd smashed. Perfectly intact. Facing me. Its LED blinking red. I wrapped it in aluminum foil and locked it in my shed. The next morning, it was back in the living room, pointing at the couch. I set up my phone to record while I slept. Played the footage back the next morning. From 2:03 to 2:06 a.m., the feed went dark. Then, slowly, the image returned. Shaky, like someone was holding the phone, filming me, close up on my face, zooming in on my eyes, and a voice, soft and crackling, whispered, "Now you're on my system." I moved out the next week. New apartment, new locks.
No cameras.
No devices, even. I live analog now. But still, every now and then, my phone buzzes.
No sender. No app.
Just this message, kitchen, motion detected, and a still image of me sleeping. When I bought the house, the realtor warned me it had quirks, older construction, narrow crawl spaces, uneven floors. I didn't mind. I liked old things. Charm, character, creaks in the night. All part of the experience. But I didn't know the house had another feature. Ticking sound. From inside the walls. First, I thought it was pipes. It always started around midnight, soft, rhythmic ticks. Like a metronome buried behind the drywall. Tick, tick, tick. It wasn't loud, just persistent. Sometimes it would last for 5 minutes. Other times, hours. I timed it once, exactly 66 ticks per cycle. Every night, same count, and then silence. Until the next night, I searched everywhere. under the floorboards, behind the outlets, even in the attic. There were no clocks in the walls.
No luose wires. No vermin.
But the ticking always came back. And then it changed. On the seventh night, the ticking was followed by something else. A voice, faint, like someone speaking through layers of cotton. It's almost time. I leaned against the wall, pressed my ear to the plaster. There was something inside, breathing, slow, heavy, labored. The wall felt warm to the touch. I backed away. The next day, I found a new door. In the hallway, small, square, hidden beneath peeling wallpaper. It hadn't been there before. Behind it, a crawlspace. Peered in. There was a single object sitting in the dark. A clock. Antique. Brass. Covered in dust. Still ticking. Except the hands weren't moving. They pointed to 3:33. Permanently. That night, I woke up at 3:33 a.m. The house was dead silent.
No ticking. No breathing.
No wind. I sat up and heard something whisper from behind the bedroom wall. It's time now. The lights flickered. The room grew ice cold. And then, one by one, all the clocks in the house stopped. Even the ones I'd brought myself. Watches. Microwaves. My phone. Every device froze at 3:33. I walked the halls in the dark, calling out. I was alone, or supposed to be. Then the ticking returned. Louder, faster, coming from every wall, like hundreds of clocks beating in sync. It rose to a roar, then stopped. In the silence, I heard footsteps. Inside the wall. Not mice, not rats. Bare feet, soft, dragging, and a sound like metal scraping wood. Then a single knock, right behind my head. I ran. The next day, I boarded up the hallway door, nailed it shut, hung a tapestry over it. Didn't dare open it again. But that night, I woke to a strange sensation. Breath on my cheek, and a voice beside the bed whispered, "You were supposed to let me out." I moved out the next day, tried to forget. But sometimes, when I wake up at exactly 3:33 a.m., I can still hear it. Tick, 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 and I know it's almost time. I lived in apartment 4C, top floor of an old walk-up, downtown Philly. Rent was cheap, building was old, and the neighbors kept to themselves. I liked it that way. Right across the hall from me was 4B. The door was always closed. No lights under the frame.
No sounds. No packages.
No visitors. I figured it was vacant, until the night someone knocked on my door. It was 1:09 a.m. I was watching a movie, half asleep, when I heard the knock. Not loud, just 3 slow taps. Knock, knock, knock. I opened the door. No one there, except for something on the floor. A piece of string, about 2 feet long, tied into an elaborate knot. Weird, but not alarming. I tossed it, went back to bed. The next morning, I noticed something even weirder.
Apartment 4B's door was ajar.
Not open, just cracked, as if someone had peeked out, then stepped back in quickly. I hesitated, then knocked. No answer. I leaned in. Hello. The door slowly creaked shut in my face. Later that night, I asked the building manager if someone had moved in. He frowned. Nope. That unit's been empty 6 years. You sure? I said. I thought I saw. I'm sure. He cut me off, but his hands were shaking. Over the next week, things escalated. Every morning, I found something outside my door. A single sock. A doll's shoe. A newspaper from 1983. One morning, a Polaroid of my bedroom, taken from outside the window. I bought a lock chain for the inside, stopped opening the door. But on the 5th night, the knocks changed. No longer gentle, now frantic. Knock, 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 I shouted. Go away! Silence. Then a whisper. I live here too. I called the police. They checked 4B. Empty. Dusty.
No furniture.
No signs of life. Except for one thing. On the wall across from the front door, in smudged charcoal, someone had written, Do not answer her. That night the knocking returned. But not on the door. From inside my apartment. From the closet. I opened it slowly. Nothing. But carved into the wood at eye level were 3 initials. For B or I slept at a friend's place after that. When I came back 2 days later, I found my door wide open. Nothing stolen. But every mirror in the apartment was cracked, and the cracks formed the same shape. A tall woman, hair hanging down, eyes blacked out, hands pressed against the glass. And in every reflection, even after the mirrors were shattered, she was still there. The building manager let me out of the lease without a fight. He said I wasn't the first. Sometimes, he said, people see things when they're alone too long. As I left, I glanced at 4B. This door was open now. And inside, in the darkness, a face watched me go, smiling. It happened during a week of rain. The kind of cold, endless downpour that made the walls feel damp and the air heavy. I lived in a modest house I'd inherited from my grandmother. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, slightly sunken foundation. Nothing fancy, nothing modern, but it was home. Until the first night I heard the shower curtain move on its own. I was brushing my teeth, door open, listening to the rain hammer the roof. Behind me the curtain whispered. Not flapped, not moved by a breeze. It whispered, a faint sliding sound as if someone had gently pulled it back and let it fall into place again. I turned, mouth full of toothpaste, and saw it hanging still. But the air felt different, heavy, like someone had just stepped out of the tub. I checked the window shut tight, checked the floor dry.
No pets. No room mats.
Just me and that curtain, and the feeling that someone had stood inches from my back without making a sound. I closed the door and left the light on all night. The next evening I heard it again, while I was on the couch this time, distant, subtle, swish, like a hand dragging across fabric. I tiptoed down the hall and peeked inside. The curtain was half drawn, but I hadn't used the shower that day, or the day before. I walked over and yanked the curtain open. Nothing inside, except a single wet footprint on the tile.
Bare.
Facing the wrong way, toes pointing toward the wall. I bought a new curtain the next morning. Clear this time, no place to hide. I cleaned everything, scrubbed the tiles, dried the floor, felt foolish. But that night the curtain moved again. This time in front of me. I was brushing my teeth again, this time with the bathroom door shut, when the curtain rippled gently, like fingers had brushed across it. Then a voice, breathy and wet, whispered, Turn around. I ran, locked the door behind me, slept on the couch with the hallway light on. At 3:06 a.m., I heard it slide open again. SHHHHHHK. Then, a soft thud, like something stepping onto the floor, and then breathing, long shaky, inside the walls. I removed the curtain completely the next day, left the rod bare, tried to laugh about it, told myself it was stress, the weather, pipes, but that night, something scratched at the bathroom door. Low, slow, scratch. I opened the door, heart pounding. The bathroom was soaked, mirror fogged, tiles slick, water dripping from the bare curtain rod. And inside the tub, a clump of black hair, still wet. I installed cameras, one in the hallway, one inside the bathroom, set them to record all night. The next morning I checked the feed. At exactly 3:06 a.m., the video cut to static. When it came back, the curtain, the one I had thrown away, was hanging again. fully drawn, and something behind it moved slightly. Outline of a person, thin, hair matted, head cocked unnaturally to the side. And then the curtain pulled back, just a few inches, revealing an eye, staring straight into the camera. I moved out that week. Last thing I did was rip that curtain down again and toss it into the fire pit out back. Watched it burn. Screamed. 2 nights ago, at my new apartment, I woke up to the sound of water running. Walked into the bathroom, and there it was, the same curtain, fully drawn, still dripping, and from behind it, a voice that whispered, "I followed the drain." I live in a duplex, small, quiet, a bit dated. My unit is on the ground floor with a private laundry room off the kitchen. It's not a proper basement, more like a cinderblock enclosure beneath the house, accessible through a hatch in the pantry. Most people would have hated it. I didn't mind, until the night I heard someone knock from below. It started after a storm knocked out our power. I went down to reset the circuit breaker, flashlight in hand, feet echoing against the concrete. As I flipped the breaker switch, my light swept across the far wall and caught something new. A door, rusty, bolted, half covered by an old shelving unit I'd never moved. I hadn't seen it before, and I'd been down there dozens of times. Curious, I dragged the shelf aside. The door was heavy, cold to the touch, and locked with a bolt that looked ancient. I didn't force it, just stared at it a moment too long. That was my mistake. That night, I was woken by a sound.
Top, top, top.
From the hatch in the pantry, like someone was gently knocking. From the laundry room below. I froze in bed, listening. Then, a whisper drifted through the air vents. "I heard you." I didn't sleep. The next morning, I found the hatch slightly open. A cold draft seeped up through the gap. I sealed it with duct tape and pushed the fridge in front of it. Later, I reviewed my security cam, a tiny motion detector I'd installed in the kitchen. At exactly 2:44 a.m., the fridge moved, an inch, as if something had pushed from beneath. Over the next few nights, the knocking grew bolder, sometimes rhythmic, like a child drumming on a table, sometimes impatient, and always followed by whispers, garbled.
Vet.
I moved out to the couch, but the whispers found me. You shouldn't have looked. One night, I came home late and found a trail of dirt leading from the pantry hatch to the bathroom sink. Inside the sink was a single fingernail. Yellow, cracked, still damp. I called a contractor, paid him to remove the hatch entirely, fill the entrance with concrete. He came the next day skeptical, but when he went down to measure the frame, he came back up white-faced. "There's something moving behind that back door," he said. I asked what it was. He didn't answer, just packed his tools and left. Didn't charge me. That night, the knocking stopped, but the whispers changed. No longer asking, now pleading. "Let me out. I remember your face." I covered the pantry with a sheet of plywood, nailed it shut, pushed the stove in front of it, tried to forget. 3 weeks passed. Silence. Then one morning, I woke up to do laundry at the laundromat down the street. When I opened the washer door, something fell out. A small, rusted bolt, identical to the one that had sealed the basement door. Tied to it with twine was a note, scrawled in faded ink. "You opened it. You're mine now." I left town the next day, rented a new place with no basement.
No crawl spaces. No hidden doors.
But sometimes when I open the cupboard, I hear it again, faint, below my feet.
Top, top, top.
And the quiet chant of, "Laundry's done." The mirror wasn't mine. I found it leaning against the dumpster behind my building on a bitter January morning. Oval-shaped, antique-looking, its gilded edge chipped and cracked like the bark of some dying tree. I should have left it there, but something about it drew me in. It didn't reflect things properly. At least not just things. I brought it into my apartment, propped it against the wall in the hallway near the bathroom. It gave the place some character. For the first few days it was just a mirror. Then it started knocking. It was always late after 2 a.m. A soft tap 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 from the hallway. At first I thought it was the building settling, until one night when I sat in bed, lights off, listening, and it came again.
Top, top, top.
I stared at the dark hallway and saw movement in the mirror's surface. Not a reflection, but a shadow moving behind the glass. Not past it, behind it. I stood slowly, walked closer. The mirror's surface quivered, and from behind the glass the tapping changed. Now urgent, angry, tap tap tap. I covered it with a blanket. In the morning, the blanket was on the floor, soaked, like someone had pressed their wet hands against it for hours. I tried cleaning the glass, but wherever I wiped, the misty imprint of fingers would appear again, always pointing inward, like someone was holding on from the other side. I moved it into the closet, shut the door. That night I heard knocking again, but now it came from inside the closet. I stayed in bed, heart pounding. Then the closet door creaked open just an inch, and a whisper followed. I see you. I tried to throw it out the next day, loaded it into my car, drove to a landfill, but halfway there my engine died. Dead. No warning. And when I looked in the rearview mirror, there was someone in the back seat. Not behind me, but inside the mirror, staring, mouth pressed to the glass like a child fogging up a window. I left the mirror in a ditch and walked home. That night the knocking returned, from inside my bathroom mirror this time, and scrawled in the steam after my shower were the words, "One is enough." I replaced every mirror in the apartment, broke them, painted over the medicine cabinet with black primer. Still, the knocking persisted, now from any reflective surface. The TV screen, the microwave door, even my phone when it was locked. Always tapping, always that whisper, "Let me out, let me out, let me out." I don't own mirrors anymore, haven't for years. But sometimes, when I pass a storefront window, I catch a glimpse of someone standing beside me in the reflection. Tall, pale, mouth moving without sound. And if I stop to listen, I hear it. Knock, knock, knock. I just moved into a remote rental cabin, off-grid, secluded, buried deep in the pine forests of Montana. I'd been through a hard breakup, lost my job, and needed solitude to sort my head out. The owner was a friend of a friend, gave me the keys and said, "No cell service, no neighbors, no distractions." Perfect. For the first few nights, I slept better than I had in months. Then, on the fourth night, something called my name from the woods. It was late, probably 1:30 in the morning. The wind had picked up, whistling through the tall trees like breath through broken teeth. I was halfway asleep when I heard it. Faint, but deliberate. Tyler, my name, spoken just once, whispered from the other side of the cabin wall. I froze, listened. Silence. I convinced myself it was the wind. Dreams. A mental echo. Until the next night. This time it came earlier. I was in the kitchen boiling water when I heard it again, a little louder now. Tyler. It came from behind the sink. There was a narrow window above it, overlooking the dense forest. I turned off the stove, crept forward, peeked through the glass. Darkness. Nothing but swaying branches. Then movement. Something shifted between the trees. Too tall to be a deer. Too slender to be a bear. And its head turned toward the cabin. I ducked down, heart hammering. And then 3 knocks at the back door. Not the front, the back, where there were no steps, just forest. I stayed on the floor all night. In the morning, I found muddy footprints by the back door. Long, narrow, barefoot, but not human, for toes. Each tipped with a sharp drag mark, like claws. I told myself it was some kind of animal. Maybe a mountain lion. Maybe a prank. I blocked the door with the dresser. Slept in the front room with the fire poker. The knocking didn't stop. Now it came every night. Always around 1:30. Always followed by the same voice. Tyler, let me in. On the 7th night, I set up my phone to record the back door. Left it running, propped on the window ledge. Next morning, I checked the footage. At 1:29 a.m., the screen was still. Then, a shape moved into frame. Tall, thin, covered in what looked like slick, black skin.
No clothes.
No features, just smooth and glistening, like something that had never seen sunlight. It stood inches from the glass, then leaned forward. Its mouth opened sideways, too wide, revealing a line of flat, human teeth. And it said, "You called me." I didn't. I never said its name, but it knew mine. I tried to leave, packed up, hiked down the road to where I'd parked. But the car wouldn't start. Battery was drained. Cables chewed through. I turned back. The cabin door was open. Inside, nothing had been touched. Nothing taken, but scratched into the wooden floorboards, all across the living room, were the words, "You're home now." I nailed the doors shut, covered the windows. For 2 days, the forest was quiet. Then it came inside. Not through the doors, through the fireplace. Ash scattered everywhere. Footprints across the rug. And written in soot on the wall, "I heard you say my name in your dreams. I haven't left the cabin in weeks. Food's low. Water's running out. But I'm too scared to step outside. Because now, even during the day, I hear it pacing on the roof, scratching at the walls, and whispering my name in a voice that sounds like mine, but backwards. Relit. I don't have kids. I live alone in a 1-bedroom apartment.
No pets. No roommates.
No visitors. So when I came home one evening and found a baby monitor sitting on my nightstand, I thought I was losing my mind. It wasn't there when I left for work. No one has a key to my place. And yet, there it was. White, plastic, a single blinking green light. And worst of all, it was turned on. I stared at it for a full minute. The receiver made no sound, just faint static, the kind you barely notice after a while. I unplugged it, thinking it was some prank. Maybe someone left it behind in the building. Maybe a neighbor? But when I opened the battery compartment, it was empty.
No batteries.
No power cord. Still, it blinked. I tossed it in the trash, locked the door, double-checked the windows, woke up the next morning, and it was back. Sitting on my nightstand again. Still blinking. Still on. Only this time, the static was different. Underneath the hiss, I could hear breathing. Slow.
Vet.
Too loud to be a baby's. I unplugged it again. Put it in a sealed box. Left it in the hallway outside my unit. Next morning, back on the nightstand. This time, the breathing was louder, and a soft lullaby played in the background. Off key. Slowed down, like a broken music box in another room. I called building maintenance. Asked if they'd entered my unit for any reason. They said no. And the cameras in the hall? No activity.
No deliveries.
No one entering or leaving. But the monitor kept appearing. And the sounds coming through it got worse. One night, I sat on the bed with the lights off, just listening. At 3:09 a.m., the static changed. And a voice whispered, "She's almost asleep." I froze. Then, through the static came the sound of something rocking. Back and forth. Wood creaking. Soft giggles. And a sudden knock from inside the closet. I leapt up, flipped on the lights, and flung the door open. empty, but the air smelled sweet, like baby powder and old milk. And on the floor was a single tiny footprint, pressed into the carpet, facing out. That night, I stayed awake with my phone recording the audio from the monitor. The next day, I played it back. At 2:53 a.m., a new voice entered the mix. Not whispering, singing, a deep, scratchy lullaby. Go to sleep, my little one, Mama's watching from the dark. And then, right before the clip ended, you're her now. I threw the monitor into the river the next morning. Gone. For 3 days, nothing happened. Until I got a package in the mail. No return address. Inside was a new baby monitor, newer model, sleeker design. And a note that read, "Let her rest." That night I heard crying, faint, from the walls. And when I looked in the bathroom mirror, there was a reflection over my shoulder. A woman in a rocking chair, holding something that moved, and smiling. My apartment only has 2 rooms. A living room/kitchen combo, and a bedroom. Small, clean, nothing fancy. 1 front door. 1 bathroom. 1 closet. That's it. So when I noticed a 3rd light switch on the wall beside my bedroom door, I froze. It hadn't been there yesterday, and I would have known, because I always flicked the lights off before bed. But now there were 3 switches. 2 normal white ones I'd used every day, and a 3rd, black, plastic, slightly crooked, no label, like it had been installed in a rush. At first, I didn't touch it. I told myself I was tired, missing something obvious. But that switch kept catching my eye, like it was waiting. By the 2nd night, I couldn't ignore it anymore. I reached out and flicked it on. Nothing happened.
No lights. No sounds.
But the air felt heavier. The room seemed darker even with the lamps on. I flicked it off again. The heaviness didn't leave. That night, I dreamed of walls that breathed, of voices murmuring in a language I couldn't understand, and behind them a constant clicking sound, like a switch turning on and off, over and over. When I woke, the switch was in the on position. I flipped it off. Again, nothing happened, until I went to make coffee. Inside the cabinet, behind the coffee mugs, was a photograph I'd never seen. Black and white, faded. It showed me standing in my hallway, but taken from a higher angle, as if someone had snapped the photo from the ceiling. In the picture, the 3rd switch was already there. I checked my phone. No missed calls. No camera activity. I pulled my breaker box open. No label for a 3rd switch. Just the usual. I pried the switch plate off. The black switch wasn't connected to anything. Just wires that led into the wall. But when I put my ear against it, I could hear something faint. A humming. Mechanical. Pulsing. And behind it, the soft sound of breathing. That night, I left the switch off. But at 3:03 a.m., it clicked on by itself. And all the lights in the apartment went dead. I heard something move in the living room. A soft shuffle, like bare feet on hardwood. I didn't move. Then, a voice from the dark. "We're through now." In the morning, the switch was gone. Only 2 remained.
No ole. No waiting.
Like it had never existed. But scratched into the wall beside them were 3 words. "Do not forget." I thought it was over. But this morning, as I stepped into the shower, I saw something odd. A 4th switch, right above the bathroom sink. Black, no label, just waiting. My cousin inherited the house after our aunt passed. A big, crumbling Victorian at the edge of the woods in upstate New York. She couldn't afford to live in it, so she asked if I wanted to stay there, rent-free, while she figured out what to do with the property. It was an easy yes. I needed a quiet place to work, somewhere off-grid, distraction-free. She gave me one condition: don't go into the 3rd room upstairs. I thought she was joking, until I moved in. The third room sat at the end of a long hallway on the second floor. This door was shut tight, deadbolt.
No windows.
Just thick layers of white paint that seemed to hold the frame in place like bones beneath skin. Still, I respected her wishes. Until the static started. It began as a faint hum through the walls, like an old TV left on a dead channel. Always in the dead of night. Always from the direction of that room. At first, I thought it was a short in the wiring, the house was ancient. But even when I flipped the breakers, the sound remained. It bled into the rest of the house. No matter where I went, the hum followed. Then it started calling my name. Not loud, just beneath the surface. Like voices whispering through foam. Kyle. Crackling, stuttering, layered with interference. Then, come see. I texted my cousin. What's in the third room? She took 2 hours to respond. Don't open it. Ever. Promise me. I asked again. What's inside? She didn't reply. But a minute later, the static cut out completely. Silence. For the first time in nights, the house was still. Then the door clicked. I stepped into the hallway. The deadbolt had disengaged on its own. The door stood open by an inch. Something inside was moving. The air shimmered, not heat, but like watching a VHS tape warp. I stepped closer. Then I saw the cord. A thick black wire, like an old power cable, snaked out of the room and into the hallway. It wasn't plugged into anything. It vanished into the wall. I pushed the door open. Inside was a single chair, old, wooden, facing the far wall. And above it, mounted where a mirror should have been, was a TV screen. But no cords.
No buttons.
No controls. Just a flat surface of flickering static. Until it cleared, and the image sharpened, and I saw myself, on the screen, sitting in the chair, facing the screen, wearing the same clothes, same expression, watching me back. I slammed the door shut, bolted it, nailed it, covered it with a dresser. But the next night, the screen showed up again. Not in the room, in my dreams. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw it. The chair, the flicker, the version of me staring back. And the same whispered phrase, switch places. I haven't slept since. Haven't gone upstairs. But the static is louder now. Comes through the radio, the toaster, my phone even when it's powered off. I smashed the mirror in the hallway, but the reflection's still there. And this morning, I found the chair in my bedroom, facing the window, a black cord leading from it into the wall. The screen was already on. It was a Friday evening in February when it started. I was newly single, living alone in a rental duplex near the edge of the city. Quiet neighborhood, fenced-in yard, motion lights, the works. It was the kind of place that felt safe even when it was dark. That's why I noticed the sound immediately. Click. The sound of my deadbolt unlocking. I was watching TV half dozing when I heard it. Just once. Clean. Solid. Not the door handle. The deadbolt. The same one I'd turned minutes before when I came in from checking the mail. I paused the show. Sat very still. Listened. Nothing. No wind.
No crack. No footsteps.
I stood, crept to the front door, and checked. The bolt was unlocked. I lived alone.
No spare keys.
No landlord nearby. No one had touched that lock but me. I turned it back. Clunk. Felt solid. Nothing weird. I told myself it had probably not caught all the way earlier. Maybe I'd twisted it weird. I went back to the couch. Then 30 minutes later, click. The bolt turned again. I stood up instantly. The room felt colder. Still, like something had just passed through it. I walked to the door. Again unlocked. But this time, the handle was turned just slightly, as if someone on the other side had tried to open it. I threw on the porch light and flung the door open. Nobody there. No footprints on the welcome mat. Just the motion light blinking lazily. I stood outside for a full minute, staring down the driveway. Nothing. That night, I put a chair under the door handle, just in case. I lay in bed with my phone in hand and barely slept. At 2:47 a.m., I heard the click again. I leapt out of bed, rushed to the door. The chair had been moved. The deadbolt was open, and scratched into the wood around the lock was a message. "Why did you lock me out?" I called the cops the next day. They found no signs of tampering. No fingerprints that didn't belong to me. They chalked it up to mechanical failure and offered to patrol the area more often. But that night, the bolt didn't turn. Instead, the back door swung open. No wind, no damage, just wide open, like an invitation. I bought new locks the next morning. Upgraded everything, smart system, double bolts, even a sensor that sent alerts to my phone. It worked fine, until around 3 a.m. When I got a push notification, front door opened. The camera showed nothing but static. The lock, a brand new digital model, was offline. When I reset it, the image came back. And in the footage, the door slowly swung shut, by itself. That day, I noticed something else. A note inside my mailbox. No return address. Just a single line in shaky pen. "You let me in once already." I stayed at a friend's place after that. Left all the lights on at the duplex. Cameras rolling.
Door bolted.
Still, the alerts came every night. 2:47 a.m.
Door unlocked.
Motion detected. And then one final message, 2 nights later. "You're not home." But I am. I canceled the lease the next day. Didn't go back for my things. But sometimes, especially in cold weather, I'll hear it again. That clean, unmistakable sound. Click. And I wonder how many doors I've locked behind me. That something else has already learned how to open. I live in a quiet cul-de-sac, tucked into one of those neighborhoods where nothing ever happens. Everyone keeps to themselves. Lawns mowed. Lights out by 10. Safe. Predictable. That's why when the doorbell rang at 4:17 a.m., it didn't just wake me. It stopped my heart. First, I thought I dreamed it. Then it rang again. Ding dong. Clear. Sharp. Hollow. I sat up in bed, pulse pounding. Checked the clock. 4:17 a.m. Too early for deliveries. Too late for visitors. I grabbed my phone. No missed calls.
No alerts.
The doorbell rang again. I crept to the front window and peeked through the blinds. No one on the porch. No car in the street. Just the street lamp casting shadows onto my lawn. I opened the Ring app, but the camera feed was black, like it had been covered. I turned on the porch light remotely. Still nothing. Just darkness and static. The next morning, I checked the saved footage. From 4:16 to 4:20 a.m., it was corrupted. But at the very end of the file, a single frame flashed. A face. A close. Smiling. Not a mask. Not a prank. Just wrong. Too many teeth. Eyes too wide. And pupils too deep like holes. I called the police. They were polite, but dismissive. No signs of forced entry.
No footprints.
They told me sometimes doorbells get hacked. Told me not to worry. I didn't believe them. And that night I set up another camera, hidden this time in the bushes. It happened again. For 17 a.m. Ding dong. This time I didn't move. Didn't even breathe. The Ring stayed blacked out. But the hidden cam caught something. At 4:16:54, a figure stepped into frame. No clear features. Tall. Too tall. Head tilted unnaturally. And when it reached the porch, it didn't ring the bell. It looked at the camera, the one it shouldn't have known about, then smiled, and whispered something I couldn't hear, before vanishing. Not walking away. Just gone. The next day, my Ring was gone. Unbolted cleanly from the wall. wires stripped and left dangling. I called the company. They said the camera had gone offline at 4:17 a.m. and uploaded nothing,
No logs. No pings.
like it had never existed. I started sleeping during the day, working nights, staying alert. Still, I heard the bell every morning. For 17. Ding dong. Sometimes twice. Sometimes 3 times. Until the 5th day, when it didn't ring. That scared me more than the ringing. I waited, watched. Nothing happened. Until 5:03 a.m., when my bedroom door opened on its own. And in the hallway beyond, lit only by the streetlight outside, I saw a shadow move. Then a voice, not outside, but from inside my house, whispered. I didn't need the door this time. I left before sunrise, moved across the country.
No cameras.
No ring.
No smart locks.
But sometimes, at 4:17 a.m., my phone buzzes. An unknown caller.
No voicemail.
And when I answer, just a whisper. Ding dong. My apartment shares a wall with another unit, thin drywall, old plaster, built in the 50s. I'd gotten used to hearing the occasional thump or muffled TV through it. Never anything strange. Never anything personal. Until the wall started talking back. It began one Saturday evening. I was washing dishes, music playing low, when I heard it. Hello! A man's voice. Deep, hesitant, coming from inside the wall. I paused the music. Waited. Is someone there? It asked again. I froze. Knocked gently on the wall. Yeah. Hello? You okay in there? Silence. Then, finally, I've been waiting. I called the building manager the next day. Asked if someone new had moved into the adjacent unit. He looked confused. Next door? 2BS been vacant for 6 months. I still haven't finished the repairs. I told him I'd heard someone. He shook his head. You'd be the first. The next night I heard the voice again. Only now it was whispering. Faster.
Urgent.
Don't trust the door. He's behind it. I pressed my ear to the wall. The voice dropped to a mumble rhythmic like chanting. And then I heard a second voice. Low. Growling. You're listening. I moved my bed away from the shared wall. Slept on the couch. But the next morning, I found a hole in the drywall. A perfect circle about the size of a grapefruit. Inside was darkness. Beyond that, brick. But when I leaned in, I heard breathing. And a voice that whispered, closer. I stuffed the hole with insulation. Duct taped over it. Moved a bookcase in front of it. That night, I woke to the sound of scraping. Metal on plaster. I followed the sound, it led back to the wall. The tape was gone. The insulation torn. And something white and sharp protruded from the hole. A finger. Tapping. Waiting. I called the cops. They searched 2B. Nothing inside.
No furniture. No wires. No crawl space.
But on the other side of the shared wall, they found a word carved into the plaster. Listening. I left town for a week. Stayed with my sister.
No voices. No dreams.
When I returned, the hole was sealed. Smooth. Painted over. No sign it had ever existed. I thought it was over. Until the new voice began. Higher. Childlike. I found a way in. It doesn't speak through the wall anymore. Now it uses the pipes. The TV even when unplugged. The static on my phone. Always the same message. He's still inside. But now so am I. And last night, when I opened the closet, I found something new. A crack in the wall. Fresh. Clean. And from within, a small voice whispered, "Come join us." I'd always liked older houses. The place I rented was a 1920s two-story nestled between woods and road. It had charm, crown molding, original fixtures, even a little library nook with glass-fronted shelves. But it also had something else. Something that breathed beneath the floorboards. The first time I heard it, I was lying in bed. It was a warm night, windows cracked open, fan on low. I was just about to fall asleep when I heard a sound from the floor beside the bed. Inhale, then exhale. Slow, measured, like lungs expanding just beneath the wood. I sat up, listened. Nothing. Stepped out of bed, pressed my ear to the hardwood. Silence. But when I lay back down, it resumed. Inhale, exhale, not creaking, not settling, breathing. The next night it moved. Now I heard it in the hallway, then by the kitchen table. Always slow, always rhythmic, always just underfoot. I told the landlord. He laughed. Old pipes, he said. They hiss and shift when the weather changes. I asked him about crawl spaces, vents. He said there weren't any. The floors sealed solid. No room for anything to live under there. He was wrong. That weekend, I noticed something new. Small holes in the floorboards, perfectly round, pencil-sized. About 6 of them scattered across different rooms. I peered into one. It was pitch black, but I could feel warm air rising and hear a voice, faint, hoarse, saying, "Thank you for opening me." I covered the holes with duct tape, slept in the guest room. Still, the breathing followed, sometimes fast, panting, sometimes slow, drowsy. Once it stopped entirely, until I whispered, "Hello." Then it gasped, loud, desperate, like something drowning beneath the floor. I pulled up a floorboard, just one. Beneath it, instead of insulation or dirt, was flesh, gray, veined, pulsing faintly, and in it a tooth human embedded like a pebble in gum. I gagged and nailed the board shut. I tried to move, found a new place, packed my things. But on my last night, the breathing changed. Now it echoed, filled the house from wall to wall, and from the floor something spoke. "You woke me. You made space. You belong here now." I tried to run, but every step I took, the floor sank. Soft, like stepping into wet bread. I fell, just a few inches, but enough to feel hands, dozens, grasping my ankles from beneath. I screamed, kicked, tore free, bolted outside barefoot into the cold. Never went back. A week later, I drove past the house. There was a light in the upstairs window, and when I slowed down, I swear I saw the wood of the porch rise and fall with breath, like the whole house was asleep, waiting for me to come home. It started after I dropped my TV remote behind the couch. I was watching some late-night documentary, half asleep, when it slipped between the cushions and vanished into that void beneath the furniture. I reached for it, couldn't find it, so I just let the screen run. Eventually, the program ended, and the TV turned to static. Old-fashioned black and white snow. Except this time, the static wasn't just noise. Someone was inside it. At first, I thought it was my imagination. But as I watched, something in the flickering static began to take shape. A man. Just a blur of silhouette. No face. No clear features. But real. He was standing in the center of the screen, unmoving, and then he lifted his hand, slowly, and waved. I yanked the cord from the wall, sat there, breathless, watching the screen fade to black. No sound, no movement, just my heart pounding. I convinced myself I'd been too tired. I was playing tricks. The human brain loves to see patterns in noise, right? I went to bed. The next night, it happened again. Same routine, same couch, same channel. After the program ended, the screen went to static, and he was there again, this time closer, and the wave, slower, more deliberate. I switched the input, tried streaming something. The static overrode it. No matter what I tried to play, it returned to snow. And the man, standing, watching, every time closer, until I could start to make out details. Broad shoulders, tilted head, eyes like black pinholes in the distortion. Then the voice began, just faintly, beneath the hum of static, crackling through the TV speakers. A whisper. My name. Connor. I disconnected the cable, unplugged the router. Still, the screen lit up by itself at 3:33 a.m. Always the same figure. Always the same voice. Connor, let me in. I smashed the TV on the fifth night, carried it to the dumpster, felt relief. That night I slept peacefully, until my phone buzzed. I picked it up, and the lock screen glitched, flickering black and white like old static. And there he was, on my phone, standing, waving. I factory reset it, changed Wi-Fi, bought a new device. Didn't matter. Every screen I owned, laptop, tablet, even my microwave display, started to glitch at 3:33 a.m. and always showed him. One night, the static didn't start on the screen. It started on the mirrors. Tiny distortions, first like fog, then like snow, until one night the glass fully pixelated just like a TV gone to dead air. And then his reflection stepped out, not in the mirror, into the room, just for a second. But he looked so happy. I don't have electronics anymore. No phone.
No screens.
I even covered the windows in tinfoil just in case. But sometimes when I blink too long I see static. And inside it, he's still there, closer, smiling, and whispering, "You're the one who tuned in." I'm a delivery driver. I work long hours, often odd ones, nights, weekends, holidays. That's why I value my apartment. It's small, tucked above a barbershop on a quiet block, but it's mine. A place to unwind, to feel alone in a good way. But one Thursday night after a double shift, I came home to find my front door locked from the inside. I don't mean the standard deadbolt. I mean the interior chain was latched. And I live alone. At first, I assumed I was tired, mistaken. Maybe I'd left it latched before heading out in the morning. But I always exit through the rear staircase when I'm running late, and I never latch the chain unless I'm inside. Which I wasn't. So how did it get chained? I knocked once like a fool. Hello? Nothing. I dug out my phone, ready to call the landlord. But then I heard it. From inside the apartment. Footsteps, slow, padded, crossing the wood floor toward the door. They stopped, right on the other side. I didn't wait, ran down the fire escape, called the police from the alley. When they arrived, they found the door unlocked, chain hanging loose, no one inside, no signs of forced entry, nothing missing, except one thing, a pair of slippers I kept near the bed, gone. That night I didn't sleep. I kept every light on, checked every closet. And still, around 3:21 a.m., I heard it again. Footsteps, crossing my kitchen floor. But this time, the door was locked. I triple-checked. So I called out, "Who's there?" Silence. Then a whisper, from inside my bedroom closet, "You locked me out." I flung the door open. Nothing inside, except a single wet footprint on the wood.
Bare.
Facing inward, the slippers were back, placed neatly on the closet floor. The next day I bought cameras, mounted one above the front door, another in the living room, both motion-triggered. That night, I watched the feeds in real time from my phone. At 2:48 a.m., the living room camera flickered. The feed returned and showed something new. The front door, slowly opening. No one on screen. Then the chain floated up and latched itself. I checked the hallway footage. No one had entered. The door never even opened from the outside. Whatever entered came from inside. I slept with a baseball bat after that. The sounds didn't stop. The slippers moved every night, to different rooms, different orientations. Once, I found them standing upright at the foot of my bed, like someone had stepped out of them, and beside them, on the wall, smeared in something dark, was a handprint, child-sized. The final straw came a week later. I was out doing a night shift when my phone buzzed. Motion alert. Front door cam. I opened the feed. A person was standing inside my apartment, staring up at the camera. No features, just a head tilted too far to the left, like a question mark. Arms limp at the sides, wearing my slippers. The live feed ended with the lens being covered by a hand. I didn't go back, not even to grab my things. The landlord texted a week later, "Hey, you moving out? Can't reach you. Also, why is there a lock on the inside of the closet?" I never replied, but sometimes, when I'm staying at a friend's place or crashing in a motel, I'll wake up to find the chain latch on the front door, locked from the inside, and a familiar pair of slippers, damp and warm, waiting just outside the bathroom. I moved into a mountain cabin alone, just for a month, a writing retreat. I needed distance, quiet, a place where the only sounds were whined through the trees and birds in the morning. The place was perfect.
No neighbors. No Wi-Fi.
No cell signal. Just me, my notebooks, and the rhythm of my own breath. Until the forest spoke back. It started with an echo. I'd gone out behind the cabin, stood at the edge of the trees, and shouted into the wide-open silence, just for fun. "Hello!" It bounced back like you'd expect. "Hello!" Same cadence, same pitch, nothing strange. I laughed and did it again. "Anybody out there?" Silence. Then, faintly, the reply, "Out there, there." Except the echo wasn't mine. I stopped laughing, listened. The wind picked up, branches moved, and something snapped nearby, like a footstep. I went back inside, locked the door, told myself it was just the acoustics, or a deer, or both. But the next evening it happened again. I was inside this time, washing dishes, and from the woods, through the open kitchen window, came my voice. "I'm in here." It was faint, crackled, off, but definitely my own voice, except I hadn't said anything. I shut the window, turned on music, drowned it out. But that night, something tapped on the bedroom wall. 3 times. Soft, rhythmic.
Top, top, top.
Like fingers, or nails. And a whisper followed. "Echo?" I slept with the lamp on. At dawn, I walked the perimeter of the cabin. Nothing disturbed. No tracks. But carved into the bark of the tree closest to my window was a single word, "Hello," in neat block letters. Fresh. I stopped shouting into the woods. Stopped talking aloud at all, just in case. But even in silence, I'd hear it now, mimicking things I'd said days earlier. In my own voice, sometimes too fast, sometimes backward, always coming from deeper in the trees. One night I left my recorder running, set it on the windowsill, slept with headphones in. Next morning I played it back. For the first hour, just wind, crickets. Then, around 3:14 a.m., footsteps, then static, then my voice, saying, "Please let me in. I don't want to be out here anymore." But I never said that. I packed my things, drove the hour to town, found my phone buzzing with missed calls and texts. I didn't answer any of them, but one voicemail chilled my blood. It was from my number. Just a 6-second message. "Hello?" My voice. Echo. Not mine. Then a soft growl. I never went back to that cabin. But sometimes I hear it again when I'm alone, in the stairwell or near a vent. I'll cough, or drop something, or breathe too hard, and from somewhere nearby, a whisper answers in my voice. "I heard that." When my parents passed, they left me the house. A two-story colonial on the outskirts of Connecticut. Solid foundation, drafty windows, and an attic no one ever used. I moved in mostly out of obligation, figuring I'd clean it up, sell it, and be done with it. But I never got around to selling it, because something turned on the attic light, and there was no electricity up there. I found out by accident. It was late fall. I was doing dishes when I noticed a soft glow spilling down the hallway. Pale, flickering, unnatural. I followed it to the staircase. Looked up. The attic door, one of those pull-down ladder types, was shut tight, but light was seeping through the edges. Golden, almost warm, like candlelight, except I never installed a bulb up there. And I don't own candles. I stood beneath the hatch, listened. Silence. I didn't pull it down. Not that night. The next day, I checked the fuse box. There was no circuit for the attic. Wiring up there had never been finished. The old contractor left it disconnected years ago. And yet, when I checked that evening, the light was on again. Even brighter. I pulled the hatch open. Ladder unfolded on its own. And the light shut off. Instantly. I climbed up the next morning. Daylight streaming in through the roof slats. Dust. Old boxes. A broken rocking horse. No light fixtures.
No valves.
Just a single mirror leaning against the far wall. Tall. Cracked. I didn't remember seeing it before. That night, the light returned. This time, pulsing. Almost like it was breathing. I set up my phone to record. Left it propped on a stack of books facing the ceiling. Went to bed. Next morning, I checked the footage. Nothing happened for 3 hours. Then, at 3:03 a.m., the attic hatch opened on its own. The camera's mic picked up soft creaking footsteps. And then, a face appeared in the upper frame of the screen. Not climbing down. Just staring upside down from inside the attic. Smiling. Its eyes too close together. Its mouth too wide. And then the light cut out again. I bolted the attic shut. Hammered nails into the hatch. Painted over the edges. Still the light leaked through. Still warm. Still golden. But now it flickered in patterns. Like Morse code. I filmed it. Tried to decode it. Spelled out 3 words. Look behind you. I dropped the phone. Ran. Didn't stop until I reached my car. When I returned later that day with a locksmith, the hatch was wide open. The mirror was gone. In its place, a folded sheet of paper. On it, in careful handwriting, "You see the light. The light sees you." I moved out that night. Haven't been back. But last week, I got a text from an unknown number. A photo of the attic. The light was on. And in the mirror's reflection, I was standing there, even though I was 200 miles away. I live in the Midwest. Winters here are brutal, so when I bought my first house, a modest ranch-style place on a quiet street, I was obsessed with making sure the heating worked perfectly. Furnace tuned, filters changed, vents clear. For the first 2 months, it was cozy, efficient. Then something started crawling inside the ducts. At first, I thought it was an animal. Scraping, scratching, metal groans like something shifting against the aluminum inside the walls. I called pest control. They checked every inch. No sign of anything, they said. You're clean. But the sounds didn't stop. They got closer. One night, I was lying on the couch when I heard it. A knock on the vent. Just once. Then a soft, drawn-out sigh. I sat up. Knock again. Then a voice. Not loud, not clear, but undeniably there. Cold in here? I turned off the heat. The voice didn't care. Kept whispering. Always the same thing. Cold in here? Let me out. I opened a vent cover to look inside. Smelled wet, like rotting leaves and rusted pennies. I shined a flashlight in. Just shadows. and a single long scratch down the inside of the duct wall, like a claw had been dragged from the inside. I sealed the vent with duct tape. Didn't matter. The next day it was open again, and inside I found something new. Teeth. 3 of them. Human. Baby-sized. Clean. Arranged in a little triangle on the floor grate. I stopped using the heater altogether. Bought space heaters. Slept with thick blankets. But even then, every night around 2:00 a.m., the vents would breathe. You read that right. They'd exhale. A moist, heavy gust of air, despite the furnace being off at the breaker. Then a whisper. You let me in with the heat. I hired an HVAC specialist to cap the whole system. He opened the main trunk line in the crawl space and found something he didn't explain. He just looked at me, pale, and said, "You need to leave. Tonight." I asked what he saw. He didn't answer, just packed up his tools and drove off. Never returned my calls. That night, I smelled something strange, like burned skin, and from every vent in the house came a low hum, mechanical, but layered under it a growl, and a voice, louder now. "It's warm inside now."
I'm stretching.
I left the house, slept in my car 2 nights, filed a repair request with a furnace company across town. When they came to inspect, they found bones in the ducts. Dozens. Some small, some long. None matched animal profiles. They shut the job down, called the police, but the cops found nothing after a second visit. Just empty metal tubes. I never moved back in. But wherever I go, hotels, rentals, guest rooms, the heating starts to click at night. And if I listen closely, I hear it again. In the walls, in the vents, that same breath, that same whisper. "It's cold in there. I'll keep you warm." I moved into the apartment after the last tenant vanished. No foul play, according to the landlord. She just stopped answering calls. Mail piled up. Rent unpaid. When they finally entered, all her belongings were still there. Except her. They offered me a discount if I didn't ask questions. I said yes. I should have said no. It was a nice place, compact, ground floor, big windows, older but clean. The only odd feature was the closet in the bedroom. The door opened inward, into the closet space. You had to step inside to close it. Weird design, but nothing alarming. Until the first night I heard it creak open on its own. It was around 2 a.m. I just turned off the lights and was drifting off. Creak. Soft. Slow. I turned on the lamp. The closet door was open. Just a sliver. Like someone was standing behind it, peeking out. I stood, heart pounding, and stepped forward. Grabbed the knob. Swung it wide. Empty. I closed it, this time shoving an old suitcase against it from the outside. Went back to bed. Next night, same time. Creak. The door was open again. And the suitcase. Pushed gently aside. Not toppled. Just moved. Like someone had nudged it with care. I started locking the closet door with a chain latch I installed myself. It didn't help. One night, I heard a sound from inside. Knocking. From behind the closet wall. 3 slow knocks. Then a voice. "It's bigger in here than you think." I tore open the drywall the next morning. Behind it wasn't insulation or framing. It was another space. A hidden crawl tunnel. Narrow, dark, lined with old nails and splinters. At the far end I saw light. A dim, flickering orange glow. Like candlelight. Then it went out. I crawled in once. Just a few feet. Long enough to reach something on the floor. A photo. Polaroid. Of me. Lying in bed. Taken from inside the closet. I scrambled back out and sealed the wall with plywood and screws. But that night, the photo was on my pillow. I called the police. They checked everything. Found no signs of entry. Told me it was probably a prank. Said I had nothing to worry about. But when they left, I found something tucked behind my bathroom mirror. A note, in my handwriting. She never left. She just found another way in. The closet started opening faster after that. Never violently, just deliberately, like someone was testing boundaries. The light inside flickered more often, and sometimes I'd hear footsteps inside the wall, pacing, sometimes crawling. Once I heard laughter, not a voice, not human. I moved out a week later, left everything behind. The landlord didn't ask questions, just handed me my deposit and offered the same unit to a college student a few days later. Said, "We're finally getting someone who won't scare so easy." Last night, I checked the listings out of curiosity. That unit? Off the market again. Delisted without explanation. But in the comments, someone left a review. "The closet never stays shut. She talks when the lights go out. Don't answer her." It was my first week living alone after the divorce. Just me, a half-empty apartment, and the ghost of furniture we hadn't yet replaced. My daughter stayed with her mother for the summer, so for now it was just silence and cardboard boxes. And then someone knocked from beneath my bed. I'd been asleep maybe an hour when it happened. Knock, knock, knock. 3 crisp raps from directly under me. Not the floor, not the wall, under the mattress. I shot upright in the dark, heart racing, skin already clammy. Held my breath. Listened. Nothing. I told myself it was the frame settling. A pipe. The floorboard shifting. But when I leaned over and lifted the bedskirt, I saw something. A note. Folded, pale, left exactly center under the bed. I pulled it out with 2 fingers. Written in red crayon. In a messy child's hand. "You rolled over me. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. Checked under the bed every 10 minutes. Left every light on. In the morning, the note was gone. The next night, the knocking came again. At the same time, 2:41 a.m. This time louder. Then a voice high-pitched, like a child's. Get up. I leapt out of bed and flipped the light on. Pulled the mattress away from the wall. Looked under. Empty. No note. No one. But pressed into the dust under the bed were 2 handprints. Small. Like a kid's. Facing upward. I called my ex the next day. Asked if our daughter had mentioned anything strange when she visited. "She always said she didn't like your bed," she said. "Kept saying a girl slept under it." I froze. "She gave her a name," she continued. "Who?" My ex paused. "Claire. Claire." The name sat in my head like ice. I didn't know any Claire. Never had. That night, I slept on the couch. Until 2:41 a.m. When the knocking came again. Not under the bed this time. From inside the couch. The cushions pressed up into my back. Like something was shifting inside the frame. Then the voice again. "Why are you hiding?" I ripped the couch open the next morning. Found nothing. Except another note. In crayon again. "She doesn't like when you leave." I searched the internet. Found an old city archive about the apartment building. It used to be a daycare in the 1960s. Shut down in 1972 after a fire. 1 child was never found. Her name? Claire Hutchins. Age 6. Presumed dead. I didn't sleep in the apartment again. Moved to a motel. Then to a friend's. But the knocking didn't stop. Followed me. Now it comes from beneath whatever I sleep on. And always at the same time. 2:41 a.m. 3 knocks. Then, "You forgot I was under here." Last night I tried staying awake. Sat on the floor with my back to the wall. But at 2:41 I heard it again. Knock. 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 Then breathing. Then, "Can I sleep on top this time?" When I moved into the new apartment, the bedroom light was already installed. A simple white bulb in a plastic dome fixture, nothing fancy. The landlord said it had been replaced just a few weeks ago. Energy efficient, long-lasting. What he didn't mention was that the bulb sometimes turned on by itself, or that it sometimes blinked. The first night, I flipped the switch, turned out the lights, crawled into bed, and fell asleep like normal. Sometime after midnight, I woke up to brightness. Not full room light, just a flicker. The bulb pulsed once, then died. I sat up, confused. Tried the switch, nothing. Dead. Next morning it worked fine again. I laughed it off. Shouldn't have. The second night, the bulb stayed off until 2:17 a.m. Then it blinked again. Twice. On off. On off. Rhythmic. Measured. Like Morse code. I checked the wiring. Everything looked normal. But when I looked closely at the bulb, I saw something odd. A shadow inside the dome. Just faint. Like something coiled up behind the frosted plastic. It shifted when I moved. The next night, I left the light on just to test. Set up my phone camera. Pointed it at the ceiling. At 2:17, the bulb blinked again. But the video showed something stranger. The camera picked up a second light source coming from inside the fixture. A red glow, very faint, like a recording LED. I unscrewed the bulb the next day. Found a tiny microlens embedded inside the base. Not a manufacturer stamp. Just 3 small letters etched into the glass. WAT. I didn't know what it meant, but I started sleeping with a blanket over my head. That night, I woke up to a voice. A whisper, "Don't hide," came from above. From the light fixture. I ran out of the room. Slept in the tub. I bought a new bulb from the hardware store. Installed it. Threw the old one in the trash. Problem solved. Until 2 nights later, when I came home and found the old bulb back in the ceiling. My new one shattered on the floor. The dome reattached. And the bulb blinking. 3 times. On, off, on, off, on, off. I called the landlord. He came over, confused. Said he'd never seen anything like it. He took the bulb with him. Promised to have it tested. That night, I heard something new. Breathing. Coming from inside the walls. From above the ceiling. And the fixture? Still blinked. Even without the bulb. I moved out the next day. Left everything behind. 2 weeks later, I got a package. No return address. Inside, the same bulb. Intact. Blinking slowly. And a sticky note attached. "We liked watching you sleep." It started during the 3rd week of working from home. I was alone most of the time. Lived alone, ate alone, slept alone. The apartment was small but comfortable, with high ceilings and creaky floors that always let me know when I was truly by myself. I didn't talk much anymore. Didn't need to, but I still thought plenty. And that's when someone started answering. It began harmless enough. I think about getting up for coffee and hear the kettle whistle, even though I hadn't turned it on. I thought maybe I'd left it on without realizing. Then one day, I mentally debated whether to order takeout, and my phone buzzed with a notification. Order received. Today, 33 mints. But I hadn't opened any app, hadn't spoken aloud, hadn't even moved. I told myself it was coincidence, subconscious habits, muscle memory. But one night, while reading in bed, I thought, I wonder if I locked the door. And instantly, from the living room, I heard the deadbolt click. Once, soft, like someone had just locked it for me. I froze, didn't move. Then, from the hallway, a whisper. "Don't worry, I already did." I leapt out of bed, checked every room. No one there. Windows shut. Bathroom empty. Kitchen untouched. But inside the fridge, written on the foggy condensation of a Tupperware lid, were the words, "I'm here to help. From that night on, the thoughts weren't private anymore. Every time I questioned something in my head, someone answered, sometimes with a whisper, sometimes with a physical response, a faucet turning off, a light dimming. And then it started offering suggestions. You should drink more water. The kitchen tap would turn on. That knife isn't clean. The dishwasher would beep, mid-cycle. Felt helpful. First, until I thought something angry. One night I was stressed, exhausted, and thought, I wish whoever's listening would just shut up. And the house went dark. Every bulb, every screen, gone. Then one by one they came back. And on the hallway wall, scratched into the paint, don't be ungrateful. I tried to think of nothing, cleared my head, wore headphones, played static. But the responses didn't stop. If I slipped for even a moment, even a fleeting thought, I'd hear it. I heard that. I booked a hotel room, didn't pack, left the apartment with nothing but my keys, stayed quiet, didn't think, didn't react, until I got into bed and thought, reflexively, I hope I didn't leave the stove on. And from under the bed, a whisper replied, don't worry. I turned it off. I don't know how long the sink had been whispering. I only noticed because I dropped a spoon one night while washing dishes. It hit the basin hard, clanged against porcelain, and for a second, the sound that followed wasn't an echo. It was static, like a detuned radio, hissing, and then something spoke. At first, I thought it was the pipes, old plumbing, air bubbles, the usual excuses. But then it happened again, louder, clearer. This time it said, don't turn me off. I stared at the drain. The water was still running, steam curling upward. But beneath the rushing tap, I could hear a distinct hum, electric and wet at the same time. I turned the faucet off.
Instant silence.
Until the static clicked back on, this time without the water. It started speaking more often, only late at night, only when I was alone, always from the sink, sometimes in words, sometimes in sounds, distant train whistles, ticking clocks, whispers in foreign languages. One night, I heard screaming, high-pitched, distant, like it was echoing up from a long, long way down. I recorded it, played it back the next day, just static. But if I slowed the track by 50% and reversed it, a voice emerged. He's not in the pipes. He's in the water. I asked the landlord about the plumbing. He got quiet, then said, that unit had a leak a few years back. Guy said the sink wouldn't stop running. Then one day, he didn't finish, just shook his head and left. That night, the sink turned itself on. No warning. Full blast. I ran to the bathroom, heart pounding. Steam fogged the mirror. And on the glass, written with a wet finger, let him through. I pulled the faucet apart the next day, shut off the water at the main, took the whole fixture out. Underneath, wedged in the drain pipe, was a piece of metal. Not a washer, not a nut, a dental crown, still stained, still warm. I left it on the counter. The next morning it was gone, replaced with a single note. That was his. Now every time I run the water, even at someone else's place, I hear it again. Faint, a flicker in the stream, a whisper under the drip, a voice that says, turn it back on. I'm still thirsty. It happened on the fourth night after I moved in. I was still unpacking. Boxes stacked in corners, clothes draped over half-assembled furniture, tools scattered around like breadcrumbs. The place was an old studio rental in a pre-war building downtown. Hardwood floors, high ceilings, narrow hallway that connected the front door to the main room and kitchen. Everything normal, until the hallway kept going. I got up to get water around 2 a.m., barefoot, lights off, just the glow from the fridge ahead. I stepped into the hallway and walked toward the kitchen. Except, the kitchen wasn't there. Just more hallway. And behind me, only dark. I stopped, looked around. The dimensions didn't make sense. The hallway felt longer, stretching farther than the physical space should allow. I turned back or tried to. No end in sight. The front door was gone, replaced with more hallway. The same floorboards, the same pale walls. Repeating. I called out, "Hello!" My voice echoed strangely, like the space around me had shifted into something too big, yet too tight. Claustrophobic infinity. Then I saw the door, about 20 feet ahead. An exact copy of my apartment door. Same worn brass number. Same mail slot. I ran to it, tried the knob. Locked, but a note was taped to it. In my own handwriting, "This one isn't yours." I turned around. Another door had appeared behind me. Same style, but this one was open a crack. Warm yellow light spilled out, and a smell, old cologne and cigarette smoke. My dad's smell, but he'd been dead for 7 years. I stepped back, heard a noise from the other side of the open door. A chair creaking, a voice clearing its throat. Then my father's voice. "Come on in, kiddo. I've been waiting." I ran. Down the hallway, past another door, and another, each one marked with a different memory. A childhood bedroom, my college dorm, the hospital room where my grandmother died. Each slightly ajar, each one beckoning, each one whispering a version of my name. Some voices sounded like me, some didn't. I don't know how long I ran. Time blurred. My legs never tired, but my fear built and built, until I saw it. A new door. Not familiar. Not warm. Just black wood, covered in scratch marks. And a single word etched in the center. Home. I opened it. Light blinded me. Then I blinked. And I was back in my bed. Safe. Or so I thought. The hallway was normal the next morning. I laughed. Thought I'd dreamed the whole thing. Until I opened the fridge. And found a photograph taped to the inside wall. It showed me, standing in the black hallway, opening the door that said home. And behind me, something tall, smiling, waiting. I live in a basement apartment. It's small, just a single bedroom, a galley kitchen, and 2 windows. One in the bedroom and one above the kitchen sink. Both look out onto the same thing, a narrow gap between buildings. 4 feet of dead space. A blank brick wall. That's why I knew something was wrong the night I saw a man staring in through the kitchen window. It was around 11 p.m. I was washing a plate, lost in thought. I glanced up, and there he was, face pressed to the glass, expressionless, eyes wide, lips slightly parted. I screamed, dropped the plate. It shattered in the sink. But when I looked up again, he was gone. Just the bricks. Just the gap. Empty. I ran outside with a flashlight. There's no room to stand between my apartment and the next building. Barely enough space to fit a trash can.
No ladder. No footprints.
No escape route. Just solid dirt, locked gates, and that wall. I told myself it had to be a reflection. A hallucination. Until it happened again the next night. This time I was brushing my teeth. The bedroom window sits above eye level, high on the wall. Just a sliver of visibility. But I felt something. Presence. I turned slowly, toothbrush frozen in midair. And I saw eyes, staring down through the window. Same man. Same pale skin. Same blank stare. I ran into the kitchen. Window was dark. But when I turned the sink light off, I caught it again in the reflection of the glass. A handprint, pressed against the outside. Fresh.
Vet.
Human. I filed a police report. They checked the perimeter. Confirmed what I already knew. No way to reach the windows.
No ley. No ladder.
No crawl space. I'd say it was a trick of the light, the officer said. Or maybe you're seeing your own reflection. I wanted to believe him, until the next morning, when I found a note slid under my front door. It read, "I like the way you look when you're scared. I covered the windows with cardboard. Slept in the living room. Still, I heard tapping every night. Always at 2:46 a.m., like nails on glass.
Top, top, top.
And one night, I woke to the sound of breathing. Close, heavy. When I peeled back the cardboard just an inch, I saw an eye staring through the slit. Blinking slowly, patient. I bought motion cameras. Installed one at each window. Checked the feed every morning. Nothing. Just static. Until the fifth night. At 2:45 a.m., the static cleared for one frame, and in that single moment, the man was inside the apartment, standing behind me. Back to the camera. Looking into the darkness of my bedroom. I moved out the next day. But a week later, the landlord called. He said the new tenant had moved in, no issues. But then he paused. Said something weird had happened. He found a message scrawled on the inside of the kitchen cabinet door in black marker. He lives in the wall behind the bricks. I haven't had a window since. But sometimes, in the silence between thoughts, I hear it again. That soft, familiar sound.
Top, top, top.
I didn't know my roommate had moved out. We weren't close, just two people sharing a 3-bedroom rental. He mostly stayed in his room, door closed, blinds drawn. We exchanged polite nods, occasional small talk. That was it. So when the house felt a little too quiet, I didn't notice right away. When I finally knocked on his door and got no answer, I figured he was out. What I didn't expect was to find the room completely empty. Bed gone. Closet empty.
All spare.
Like he'd never lived there at all. I texted him. No reply. Called. Straight to voicemail. I checked with the landlord, who looked confused. Didn't he tell you? She said. He moved out last week. Left a note on the counter. There was no note. She emailed me a scan of it. Scrawled on lined paper. Thanks for letting me stay. Don't talk to the man in the mirror. I didn't understand. I didn't even have a mirror in my room. But the next day, one appeared. A full-length mirror standing against the wall where his bed used to be. I assumed the landlord had left it behind. But when I asked her, she said she didn't furnish that room. Didn't even know there was a mirror in the house. That night, I heard footsteps upstairs, pacing back and forth. Except I was the only one home. I grabbed a bat, crept up the stairs and checked the hall. Empty. The spare bedroom empty. The bathroom, lights off. Then I saw the mirror. It was facing the hallway now. And in its reflection, there was a person walking toward me. I spun around. No one there. Looked back. He was closer in the mirror. Grinning. Wearing my old hoodie. Skin pale and tight like damp paper. Eyes too wide. I threw a blanket over the mirror and pushed it face first against the wall. Next morning, it was back in place. Uncovered. And on the glass, in foggy breath marks. You saw me. That's enough. I started locking the bedroom door at night. Didn't matter. At 3:11 a.m., I heard breathing. Not outside the room. Inside. I flicked on the light. The mirror now stood at the foot of my bed. And in the reflection, I was sleeping soundly. Except I wasn't. I was awake, staring. And the version of me in the mirror opened his eyes, smiled, and mouthed, "Switch." I smashed the mirror. Shards everywhere. But even as it cracked, I saw movement in every piece. The same version of me, in different rooms, staring, waiting. The landlord let me break the lease. Said she understood. But as I left, she asked, "Hey, did you see this?" She handed me a new note she found under my old bed. Same handwriting as the last one. It read, "One of you always stays." I'd always had a fear of open closet doors. Even as a kid, I'd sleep facing away from them, too afraid that if I looked too long, I'd see something looking back. So when I moved into my new apartment, a single-room sublet with a long, shallow closet and no door, I hung a curtain, just a thin sheet, something to cover the black rectangle that gaped across from my bed. But it wasn't enough, because the thing behind it breathed when I did. It didn't start right away. The first few nights were quiet, lonely even, but by the fifth night, I began to notice something odd. Every time I inhaled, I heard another inhale. Every time I exhaled, a softer one followed. Not quite echo, not quite synchronized, lagging just enough to feel like someone was trying to match me. I thought it was my imagination, maybe an old vent in the closet. Maybe I was hearing my own breath bouncing off the curtain. Then one night I held my breath, and from behind the curtain, I heard a single strained inhale, long forced, and then nothing, like it was waiting. I didn't sleep. Next morning, I yanked the curtain aside. Nothing but clothes on cheap plastic hangers. Floor clear.
No smell.
No signs of anything living or dead. But when I stepped away, I saw something on the inside of the curtain. A handprint, smeared faintly in what looked like dust and sweat. Palm too wide, fingers too long, and pressed from the inside out. That night I stayed with a friend. Came back the next day to find the curtain twisted into a knot. Tight, like someone had spun it from the inside. And my closet smelled like wet breath. I set up a voice recorder, left it on overnight, listened the next morning. Most of the audio was silence. Then around 3:08 a.m., the mic picked up whispers, layered, like a dozen people breathing and murmuring at once. Then a single phrase, clear as glass. "We don't like being watched." I nailed the curtain to the wall, boarded the closet shut, piled furniture in front of it. But the breathing got louder, stronger. It matched me for hours, until one night I stopped breathing just to test it. Held my breath for a full 30 seconds, and then I heard it, a gasp from the closet, and a voice choking out, "You're mine now." I moved out the next morning, told the landlord I was sick, that I couldn't stay. She said, "Strange." The last tenant said something similar. I asked what happened to them. She paused, then said, "They stopped breathing altogether." Started 2 days after I moved into the new place. The apartment was cheap, sure, but not disgusting. Clean enough. A little water damage, a couple creaky tiles, but nothing that should have caused what I was about to experience. I was showering that afternoon when I heard it. A voice, coming from the drain. At first, I thought it was the neighbors. Old pipes, thin walls. Maybe someone's conversation was bleeding through the plumbing. But as I turned off the water, the voice didn't stop. It got louder. A whisper, coiled around the gurgle of draining water. "Pick up!" I froze, leaned closer. Wasn't sure I'd heard it right. And then it said again, "Pick up the phone. I've been calling." I checked my phone. Nothing. No calls.
No notifications.
Just my reflection in the screen. Pale and wet, eyes wide. That night, while brushing my teeth, I heard it again. Coming from the shower drain. A ringing. Not like a real phone. Like an old rotary telephone. Buried beneath the tiles. Muffled and distant, but unmistakable. The next day I stayed quiet. Didn't use the shower. But around 3:30 p.m., my cell phone rang. Unknown number. I picked up, and a voice said, "Why won't you answer me downstairs?" Then silence. I unscrewed the shower drain cover, shined a flashlight in. Nothing but rust, hair, and a couple drips. But it smelled strange. like ozone and wet copper. And far below, too far to be possible, I saw a faint red light blinking, like a recording light. That night, I set my phone to record and left it beside the tub. The next morning, I played it back. For 6 hours, just silence. Then at 4:12 a.m., a click, followed by the sound of a dial tone. Then a whispered voice, "I know where your bed is now." I stopped showering altogether. Tried to call the landlord. No answer. Went to her office. The door was boarded up. Handwritten sign, "No tenant contact." I tried pouring bleach down the drain. Then vinegar. Then boiling water. The drain screamed, like metal shrieking against itself. And then the water stopped draining altogether. Just sat there, cloudy and bubbling. And inside it, for just a moment, I saw a mouth. I moved out within 24 hours. Found a new place across town. Clean pipes. Quiet neighbors.
No voices.
Until this morning, when I took a shower and heard it again. Rearing, then, you moved, but I'm still connected. I've been working insane hours. Night shifts, double shifts, sleep-deprived and drowning in takeout boxes and blue light. So when I started seeing things in the corners of my vision, shapes, flickers, shadows, I chalked it up to exhaustion. But then it moved when I blinked. The first time it happened, I was microwaving leftovers. Looked down to stir the tray, blinked, looked up. Someone was standing in the doorway. A man, tall, thin, wearing an old coat. But as fast as I saw him, he was gone, like a skipped frame in a video. I stood there, heart pounding, staring at the empty doorway, chalked it up to sleep deprivation. Until it happened again. I tested it, sat on the couch, faced the hallway, stared for 5 minutes. Nothing. Then blinked. And there he was. Closer. Blink again, gone. Blink again, closer. Every time I closed my eyes, even for a second, he moved forward. Always in silence. Never moving when I was watching. Only when I blinked. I thought I was going insane. Went to the doctor. Perfect health.
No hallucinations.
No issues. Just fatigue-induced stress. They gave me pills. Didn't help. One night, I stared at my bathroom mirror for nearly an hour. Eyes dry. Unblinking. When I finally couldn't take it anymore, I blinked and saw him behind me, closer than ever, almost touching me, expressionless. Mouth slightly open. I screamed, fell backward. Lights flickered. When I looked up, he was gone. But the mirror cracked down the center. From the inside, I started recording myself. Set up a webcam. Kept the feed live. Watched the footage later. Every few seconds, the screen would glitch just a frame or two and show him, in different parts of the house, standing just outside the shower. Behind the fridge, once inside the closet watching me sleep. I taped my eyelids open. Couldn't last long. Pain was unbearable. Eventually I blinked, and that's when he touched me. Not rough, not violent, just one hand on my shoulder. Cold, like wet plastic. And I heard his voice, low, hollow, like it came from a long tunnel. "You see me now." I fled. Didn't even lock the door. Checked into a hotel. Drew the blinds. Sat under the fluorescent lights and stared at the door. Hours passed. Until finally I dozed off. Just a blink. And in that blink, one frame of the dream, his face. Upside down. Smiling. I've lived in 7 cities since. New names. New phones. New routines. But he always returns. I feel it when I blink, that subtle shift, that pressure behind the eyes. And sometimes, when I close them a little too long, I feel fingernails brushing my cheek. So now I sleep with my eyes open, dry, red, burning. But it's the only way to stop him from coming closer. because the last time I blinked, he reached my bed. I wasn't supposed to open the locked room. It was part of the lease agreement. A small square door in the corner of the attic, bolted shut from the outside, with rusted hinges and no handle. Storage access restricted. The document read, "Owner use only." But no one had been up there in years. No one but me. And every night that door got a little warmer. The first time I noticed, I'd gone up to put boxes away. The attic was chilly, poorly insulated, drafty. But the locked door was radiating heat. Like a furnace behind it. I put my palm flat against the wood. Almost burned myself. No sound.
No vibración.
Just that impossible warmth. I asked the landlord. She brushed it off. Old boiler access, she said. It's dead. Probably just sun exposure. But this was January, and the attic had no windows. A week later, the heat spread. The wall around the door began to sweat. Drips ran down to the floorboards, pooling into dark, sticky puddles. Smelled sweet, like rotting peaches. And sometimes, when I was quiet enough, I heard breathing from the other side. I placed my ear to the wood, waited, then a whisper, "Come inside. I'm awake now." I bolted down the attic stairs and didn't return for days. But the heat followed. Floorboards warm underfoot. Kitchen tiles steaming when I stepped barefoot at night. My closet doorknob hot to the touch in the mornings. Like the warmth was spreading through the house, one surface at a time. One night, I woke up drenched in sweat. Bedroom door closed. But beyond it, I saw a soft orange glow bleeding in from under the crack. Like firelight, I flung the door open. The hallway was empty, but the glow drifted upward, toward the attic steps. And I heard the latch on the locked door click open. I waited until daylight, climbed the attic stairs slowly, one creaking step at a time. The door was still closed, but the bolt was undone, and the wood had cracked, splintered, like something inside had pressed outward. On the ground, a small piece of torn fabric, burned around the edges. It looked like part of a child's nightgown. That night I dreamed of fire, children laughing in the walls, a small voice whispering, "It's warm in here. You'll never be cold again." When I woke, the house was freezing, the furnace dead, pipes still, but the attic glowed through the ceiling, that same impossible orange. I moved out the next day, didn't explain, didn't ask for my deposit. I just left. But last week, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Just one line written on the back of an old lease form. "The room misses you." I don't have kids. Never have. Never will, probably. So when I found a baby monitor in the hallway closet of my rental home, still plugged into the wall, cord wrapped tightly around itself, I didn't think much of it. Probably left by the last tenant. But when it turned itself on at 2:12 a.m., and I heard my own voice coming through, everything changed. The house was old, 2 stories, plenty of draft and creak. The kind of place where every footstep echoes and the silence hums. The monitor had no batteries, just a frayed wall cord. And I swear, I never touched the thing. But that night it crackled to life on its own. Hiss, pop static. Then, "It's okay. Go back to sleep." My voice. But I was wide awake, standing in the hallway, listening. I unplugged it, left it on the shelf. But the next morning it was back in the bedroom, sitting on my nightstand, plugged in again. No outlet nearby, just sitting there, the red light blinking softly. I tried tossing it, threw it in the garbage outside, buried it in a black bag. But that night, 2:12 a.m., hiss, pop, "They're watching you now." Same voice, still mine, but not quite right, like it was passed through a filter, like a puppet mimicking sound. I recorded it, posted the clip online. Someone replied instantly, "Reverse the audio." So I did. And when I played it back in reverse, I didn't hear my voice. I heard a child's, giggling, singing a lullaby I've never learned, and then whispering, "He doesn't know we're using him." I dug through the rental's old records, found a news article from 15 years back. Infant death, unsolved. The baby was in the nursery when the monitor started screaming. According to the report, neighbors heard it. Police found the parents asleep, both apparently sedated.
No fingerprints.
No signs of entry. The monitor was still broadcasting when they arrived. But no baby, just the sound of a man's voice repeating, "Shoo. Shoo. It's okay. I sleep downstairs now. Avoid the bedroom." But the monitor follows me. Always on. Always at 2:12. It doesn't speak anymore. Not aloud. But sometimes, just before the static begins, I hear a breath. And then the faint scrape of a crib rocking back and forth. Last night, I woke up in the living room. Monitor sitting on my chest. Speaker pressed to my ear. And from inside it, a chorus of tiny voices whispered, "He's almost ready to hold us." The floors in my house creak. That's just a fact of old wood and age. But what they shouldn't do is creak when I'm not walking. Especially not in a perfect rhythm. Especially not at exactly 3 a.m. It started subtly. Every few nights, I'd wake up to the sound of soft footsteps in the hallway. Creak, pause, creak, pause, like someone walking slowly. But it never reached my door. Always stopped around the 10th step. Then silence. At first I thought it was the house settling. Maybe an animal. But then it began counting. It was the 9th night when I heard it. Footsteps. And then, in a voice I didn't recognize, soft, flat, emotionless. 1, creak. 2, creak. All the way to 10. And then the voice said, "Almost." I stayed in bed, clutching the blanket like a child. Didn't breathe. Didn't blink. The next morning, I found 10 small indentations in the hallway rug, like someone had pressed one toe down per step. Small feet.
Bare.
I tried to catch it. Set up my phone to record video in the hallway. Let it run overnight. When I watched the footage the next day, it was empty. Until 3 a.m. Then the hallway light flickered once. The floor creaked. And the camera froze on frame 11. Locked in a blur of motion. Just enough to make out a leg. Too long. Too thin. I started sleeping downstairs. That first night I heard it again. But this time it started from my bedroom. The voice whisper counted all the way down the stairs. 1, 2, 3. At 10, it paused. I waited. Then it whispered, "I'm here now." I left. Rented a cabin 3 counties over. Didn't tell anyone. Didn't leave a forwarding address. The first night I felt safe.
No sounds. No cracks. No counting.
Until 3 a.m. When I woke up and saw 10 wet footprints leading from the front door to the edge of my bed. And a note written in crayon on the floor. Where should I start counting next? I moved into the rental because it was cheap and quiet, a weird combination for a downtown duplex. The place had quirks. Weird electrical hum in the hallway, faint mildew smell in one corner of the kitchen. But the strangest thing? The locked door at the end of the hallway. It looked like a bathroom. White panel door, bronze knob, vent grating near the floor. But when I checked the blueprints the landlord emailed me, there was no room there. Just wall. I asked her about it. She waved it off. "Oh, that? Old closet. Sealed off. We never use it." Then why is it locked from the inside? I didn't push it. Until the noises started. Water running. A toilet flushing. Sometimes the sharp squeak of a mirror being adjusted. Always around 3:15 a.m. No one else lived there. No pipes connected to that wall. I put my ear to the door one night and heard a man breathing. Heavy, slow, like he'd been waiting. I knocked. The breathing paused. Then footsteps, toward the door. Then the voice, occupied. I stumbled back, waited for something else. But the apartment was silent again. The knob didn't turn. The door didn't open. Still locked. I called a locksmith. He picked at the lock for 3 minutes, then frowned. "This keyhole's fake," he said. "Just for show. There's no cylinder behind it." I asked if he could open it anyway. He hesitated. "I mean, sure, but..." He looked uncomfortable. "There's someone standing behind the door." I told him to leave. That night, the doorknob jiggled. Not subtly, like someone inside was trying to open it, but politely, like they were waiting for me to invite them out. I taped it shut, shoved a dresser in front of it, laid in bed, eyes on the hallway, and listened as the knob turned anyway. I fell asleep at some point, woke up to silence, but the dresser pushed 3 feet down the hall, and the door now slightly ajar, just enough to see the light on inside, and the faint outline of a mirror facing the hallway. My own reflection, smiling back, but I wasn't. I slammed it shut, nailed it closed. The next day, the landlord sent a text. "You were told not to disturb the tenant." I never replied, just packed and left. But every once in a while, when I'm near a bathroom, especially late at night, I hear someone flush, and then a voice behind the mirror says, "It's your turn next." I lived alone.
No roommates. No pets.
No smart home devices. Just me and an old TV I never used. A boxy flat screen that came with the apartment, too bulky to move, stuck on a rickety stand in the corner of the living room. It didn't have cable. Didn't even have an antenna. I never turned it on. But it turned itself on. Only while I was asleep. I started noticing it in the mornings. A faint hum when I walked into the living room. That subtle static warmth you only feel from a TV that's been on for hours. Once or twice, the screen flickered on while I was halfway through my coffee. Always to the same thing. A black and white feed of my own apartment. I thought it was security footage at first, but I had no cameras, and the footage wasn't from my ceiling or corners. It was from the TV's own perspective, from the stand, as if it was watching the room, recording me. One night, I set up my phone to record the TV while I slept. Fast-forwarded the footage the next day. Around 3:47 a.m., the screen flickered on, showed static. Then slowly, the static morphed into a video of me sleeping. Same blanket, same posture, but I wasn't alone. There was a figure standing at the end of the bed. I paused the video, rewound, frame by frame. It wasn't a person. It was me, standing, watching myself sleep, expressionless, eyes wide open. I unplugged the TV. Didn't matter. Next night, it turned on again. Plug still lying on the floor. But the screen lit up just the same. Only now the footage showed the living room. From a different angle. Like a second camera had joined. I checked everywhere. Nothing new. Just that old TV, and now a second feed showing me on the couch. I threw a blanket over the screen. That night, I woke up gasping. My nose stuffed, lungs burning. The blanket had been wrapped around my face while I slept. Folded tight, too precise to be an accident. On the floor beside me, the TV remote. One I hadn't touched in weeks, sat pointed directly at my face. I took the TV outside, left it on the curb, watched from the window, but at 3:47 a.m., it turned on again. No power cord.
No outlet.
And the screen showed a live feed of me watching it from the window. Then, in blocky white text, a single sentence, "Don't look away." I moved the next day. Haven't owned a television since. But sometimes, in hotel rooms or waiting areas, when I glance at a screen that's turned off, I catch a faint flicker, and for a split second I see myself standing behind me, watching. It was a single-bedroom rental with a heavy oak front door and one of those old-school deadbolts you had to manually lock from the inside. It wasn't fancy, but it gave me a sense of security, until it started locking itself while I was outside. The first time it happened, I thought I'd forgotten. Came home with groceries, tried the knob, and it didn't budge. Twisted the key, met resistance. Deadbolt engaged. Had to call a locksmith just to get in. Felt stupid, until it happened again. And again. Always after I left for a short walk. Never long trips. And never when I checked it before leaving. I started filming myself at the door. Locked it from the outside. Wiggled the knob. Proved it was unlocked. Came back 10 minutes later. Locked again. Reviewed the footage. Nobody on the porch. No motion at all. But when I skipped to the 3-minute mark, the video cut to black for exactly 6 seconds. When it came back, the doorknob was turning by itself. I called the landlord. She seemed unsurprised. Said something vague. Yeah, we've had issues with that door. Last guy said it had mood swings. Mood swings? She laughed, but not really. I'll send maintenance, she said. But maybe just don't provoke it. That night, I heard the bolt slide into place while I was inside. No one touched it. No windows open. Just the soft, mechanical click. And then the peephole went dark. Like someone stood right up against it. I stayed quiet. Didn't approach. Eventually, the peephole cleared. I peeked out. No one there. But on the floor just outside. A note in old paper and fading ink. Don't leave me again. I tried sleeping with the door open. Propped with a chair. Set up bells to ring if it moved. At 3:12 a.m., the bells went off. Chair slammed against the wall. Door looked. Deadbolt turned. And carved into the wood with a knife or nail. Stay. I left through the window. Didn't return. But a week later, I got a voicemail from the landlord. Her voice shaking. Hey, you didn't leave a key behind, right? Because the new tenant, they're locked inside. And the bolt won't turn. From either side. I hung up. Never called back. But sometimes I dream of that door. Of the sound the bolt makes when it decides it's alone again. I don't remember buying the first apple, but it was sitting on the middle shelf of my fridge the morning I moved in. Shiny, red, without a bruise or blemish. I assumed it was a housewarming gift left by the landlord. Polite gesture, maybe. I didn't eat it. But the next day there were 2 apples. Same kind. Same shelf. I checked the fridge seal. Checked the camera feed from my phone, which I'd set up to watch my front door. Nothing. No visitors.
No deliveries.
And now 3 apples. Perfectly stacked. Each one pristine. I started throwing them out. Filled a trash bag. Watched it get hauled off by the sanitation truck. Even cleaned the fridge inside and out. But the next morning, 4 apples. Same arrangement. Same color. Each one always cold to the touch. Never rotten. Never aged. By the end of the week, I counted 12. Some stacked. Some leaning. Always silent. Always cold. I stopped opening the fridge. Taped it shut. Switched to takeout and bottled drinks. Didn't matter. They started appearing outside the fridge. On the counter. On the couch. Once inside my pillowcase. I called the landlord. She didn't pick up. Emailed her and she finally replied, "Whatever you do, don't eat one. Just leave." But I didn't leave. Not yet. Because curiosity is a hungry thing. That night, I peeled one open with a paring knife. Expected juice, maybe some seeds. But inside was a human tooth. Clean. Unstained.
No root.
just nestled in the flesh like it had always been there. I burned the apple in a metal pot. Smoke filled the kitchen, thick and gray, and from the curling fumes, I heard a child's voice. I'm still hungry. I wrapped the fridge in chains. Literally. Bought padlocks. Drilled anchors into the tile floor. Didn't open it again. But the next day, all the locks were on the inside of the fridge. Hinges reversed, and the door slightly ajar. Apples spilling out into the kitchen. I moved out the same night. Didn't pack. Didn't look back. But a few months later, a package arrived at my new place. No return address. Inside, one apple, wrapped in brown butcher paper, with a note that read, "This one is yours." It started with the feeling of movement at night. Not the tossing and turning kind, but a slow, gentle lift like the mattress was floating a few inches, then settling back. The frame never creaked. No wheels beneath it. No give in the slats. Just a smooth, impossible motion. At first, I blamed it on dreams, stress, vertigo, maybe sleep paralysis, until I stayed up with my phone camera pointed at the bed. Let it record while I laid perfectly still. Reviewed it the next morning. At 2:41 a.m., the bed lifted exactly 3 inches off the floor, hovered, then dropped soundlessly, like someone lowered it back down by hand. I flipped the mattress, checked the frame. Solid metal.
No hydraulics. No electronics.
No reason for it to move. I placed heavy boxes under the bed, wedged them in tight, set a spirit level on the nightstand. The next morning, boxes pushed aside, level still.
No tilt.
But the mattress had moved 2 feet closer to the door. I asked the landlord. He laughed nervously, then said, "Oh, that room." He scratched his head and added, "Yeah, one of the previous tenants complained of, I don't know, levitation issues." He chuckled like it was a joke. But his eyes didn't. That night, I bolted the frame to the wall, drilled metal brackets straight into the studs, nailed the feet into the floorboards, triple-checked it, went to sleep with a camera rolling again. At 3:00 a.m., I woke up on the living room couch. No memory of moving.
No blankets. No pillow.
Camera footage showed the bed frame shaking subtly, then going still. Then I rose straight upward, still asleep, arms at my side, and floated out of frame. I left the house for 3 days, came back to check on it, found the bedroom door open, a pile of blankets in the center of the floor, and in the dust on the bed frame handprints, dozens of them, too small to be mine, too many to count. I called a priest. He arrived, took one look at the room and asked if I had children. I told him no. He said nothing more and walked out. Left me a note later that read, "It only happens when the house thinks you're alone. I sleep on a cot now."
No mattress. No fram. No dreams.
But some nights, I hear the sound of tiny hands dragging across hardwood, searching for corners. And the bed frame still moves, but now it breathes when it does. I didn't even realize the apartment had a mail slot. It was one of those old-school brass flaps in the front door, painted over a dozen times. I'd assumed it was decorative. Most of my deliveries came to the communal box by the lobby. But one morning, I woke to a single envelope lying just inside the door.
No stamp.
No return address. Just my name, scrawled in shaky black ink. Inside, a photograph of me, sleeping. I confronted the building manager. He shrugged. Squirrels, probably. I asked how a squirrel got inside a locked vestibule and placed a sealed envelope directly beneath my deadbolt. He changed the subject. The next day, another envelope. Inside, a drawing in red crayon, a sketch of my apartment, but not how it looked now. It showed the couch facing the other wall, a layout I had during my first week here before I rearranged things. The drawing included something else. A tall figure standing behind the bathroom door, staring. I taped the slot shut. Foam insulation, duct tape, wooden board over the inside. No way in or out. The day after, another envelope found on my pillow. Inside, a short letter in the same handwriting. You were fun when you slept heavier. I set up a camera on the door. Infrared night vision, full battery. Captured nothing all night, until 4:12 a.m. Then the footage froze for 7 seconds. When it resumed, the tape over the mail slot had been neatly peeled back, and a single envelope now sat upright, balanced on the camera. Inside, a cut lock of my hair, bound with a black string, and a Polaroid of the back of my own head, taken from only a few inches away. I called the police. They searched. No sign of forced entry. Suggested I see someone for stress. I considered moving. Then came the final envelope, larger than the rest. Inside, a mirror shard, and a note written on the back of one of my utility bills, which had never left the apartment. Almost done. Just need the piece behind your eyes. I haven't received another envelope since. I sealed the slot with sheet metal and rivets. Moved to a high-rise where all mail is routed through a concierge. But sometimes I wake up and find my front door slightly ajar. And in the hallway, just out of reach, an envelope, waiting. It was part of the apartment when I moved in, an ornate full-length mirror, bolted into the wall beside the bedroom door. I didn't like it, but I couldn't remove it. The frame was carved from dark wood, too heavy to lift, and the surface had a strange cloudy sheen like it had once been underwater. But I didn't realize something was wrong until I walked past it and noticed it was empty.
No reflection.
Just blank glass. At first, I thought it was the lighting. I waved my hand in front of it. Nothing.
No shadow.
No movement. Just static silver glass. Then I stepped back, and there I was. But it wasn't me now. It was me from 10 years ago. Same haircut I had in college. Same hoodie I threw out after graduation. And I was smiling. I blinked. Now the reflection showed my living room. But it was burning. Couch aflame. Books curling in smoke. And someone was sitting in the fire. Still. Staring out from the blaze. Mouth open wide, but not screaming. I covered the mirror with a blanket. Didn't sleep. Next morning, the blanket was folded neatly on the bed. Mirror crystal clear. And this time I saw my own face, but the mouth was moving on its own. Whispering words I couldn't hear, until I got close. Pressed my ear to the glass. Then I heard it. You're not in here anymore. I took a hammer to it. Swung hard. Glass didn't shatter. Didn't even crack. Instead, it rippled like water, then reset. And for just 1 second, I saw something on the other side. My back, as if I had just turned away. As if I was on the wrong side of the mirror now. I boarded it up, moved my bed to the living room. But the mirror started showing up in dreams. First in corners, then in the sky. Once, I was looking at my own face in a puddle, and it blinked even though I hadn't. I called the landlord. She sighed like she'd been expecting the call. You saw it, didn't you? She said. What is it? I asked. A long pause. Then, it's the space that watches when no one else is. I left the next day. Didn't pack. Didn't warn anyone. But I passed by the old apartment last week, just out of curiosity. The windows were blacked out, and in one of them, where the mirror used to face the street, I saw a figure watching me, wearing my clothes, standing exactly as I stood, smiling, and for a moment my reflection was outside and I was not.